Chapter 341. Far to the south of the wilderness stretches the mighty Tianhuang mountain range, spanning hundreds of millions of miles. According to legend, a human immortal once opened these wildlands and established his gate of inheritance here. After ascending to the higher realms, he left no trace, and in the centuries since, his gate has fallen into disrepair. Yet the mountains themselves endured, their protected slopes fostering countless creatures and giving rise to 36 distinct realms, collectively known as the 36 states of Tianhuang. Among these states lies Yunzhou, seat of the Yingyue divine dynasty. Just to its north is Lingzhou, home to the Lingyue divine dynasty and the famed Juxiao auction house. Despite sharing the lofty character Ling with its neighbor, Lingzhou's spiritual environment is noticeably weaker than Yunzhou's, and its prosperity cannot match the flourishing capital of the Yingyue divine dynasty. These days, word had it that Juxiao auction house held a genuine sword-walking seed, and with that revelation, the 36 states of Tianhuang all sprang into motion, dispatching their top-tier warriors to attend the auction's grand finale. Ordinarily, a lone Dao seed wouldn't stir such a frenzy. What made this event irresistible was the companion piece, a legendary sword spirit fruit. Ye Cheng hovered on a drifting cloud, watching spirit boats cleave through the sky toward the city where Juxiao auction house stood. At his side walked Master Xianxia, courteous, unhurried, and free of any arrogance. The sheer scale of the gathering surprised Ye Cheng more than he'd expected. Consider the sword spirit fruit the perfect counterpart to the sword Dao seed, Master Xianxia murmured. It's much like the fire lotus paired with the fire Dao seed his lordship once refined. Each one amplifies the other. Ye Cheng raised an eyebrow. How much does it improve the odds? In normal circumstances, an imperial descendant has only a 20 to 30% chance of refining a Dao seed successfully, Xianxia replied. With this fruit's assistance, that probability soars above 50%. Ye Cheng nodded, then turned his gaze back to the teeming skies, eager to see which formidable figures would arrive for the climax of Juxiao auction house's most anticipated event. Taoist Xianxia let out a soft hum of realization. Ah, so that's how it works. Ye Cheng nodded, a spark of understanding lighting his eyes. Not everyone is blessed with a chaotic body like his. Refining even one Dao seed is a formidable challenge. Attempting 5 would drag out the process and demand an extra heavenly tribulation. Without the right auxiliary treasures, unless one's destiny truly surpasses gold, cultivating great Dao seeds becomes a vexing ordeal. That's precisely why this Juxiao auction house event has drawn such a crowd. By offering those coveted treasures, the auction relieves the powerful cultivators of the 36 states of Tianhuang from so many headaches. Naturally, word has spread quickly, and even Ye Cheng found himself quietly optimistic. He was certain he could refine his 6th Dao seed on his own, but with the sword spirit fruit as aid, the task would go faster and the seed's breakthrough be far more substantial. The thought alone made him smile. With barely a second thought, Ye Cheng summoned his divine rainbow. In an instant, he and Taoist Xianxia swept into the city's gates and strode straight toward the Juxiao auction house. At the gate of the Juxiao auction house, a throng of formidable cultivators had gathered. In Tianhuang's 36 states, anyone who attained the Xuan Emperor realm was regarded as a peerless powerhouse. Most states produced at most 1 or 2 such masters. Today, more than 24 Xuan emperors stood waiting, and the auction house directors were arrayed to welcome them in proper fashion. Just then, 2 plain-clothed figures, Ye Cheng and Taoist Xianxia, stepped out of the crowd. They wore no spirit boats and carried no fanfare, so the directors barely spared the Memma glance, assuming they were nothing more than wandering practitioners. But as the other Xuan emperors caught sight of Ye Cheng, their faces lit up, and one after another they left their stations to press forward with enthusiasm. Your Highness Ye Cheng, I have long heard of your achievements. I am Mo Lei, Your Highness, truly honored to make your acquaintance. Legends of Your Highness Yeng's exploits have reached every corner of Tianhuang. It's my privilege to meet you. The directors froze as these mighty figures bowed before Ye Cheng. Only then did they realize why the Xuan emperors had rallied to him. Ye Cheng had just been elevated to lordship over Yunzhou. No mere casual cultivator, he was now one of Tianhuang's most influential powers. Calm and composed, Ye Cheng nodded in acknowledgement of each greeting and led Taoist Xianxia through the ornate gates. A ripple of excitement passed through the assembled guests. This auction house visit had suddenly taken on far greater significance. Word of the Yingyue divine dynasty's exploits has long since passed beyond the borders of Yunzhou. Rulers of the 12 neighboring dynasties, whether they had witnessed Ye Cheng's feats firsthand or merely heard the rumors, knew enough to fear him. They spoke in hushed tones of how he had bent the mighty Yunqi Taoist to his will, forced the peerless Xuan Emperor-level spirit puppet to shatter with a single sword strike, and undone the legendary Tianhuang formation. And most astonishing of all, he had claimed the ultimate inheritance of the ancient Liu Emperor, an inheritance celebrated in every corner of the 36 states of Tianhuang. Taken together, these rumors painted Ye Cheng as an unstoppable force. Even the Xuan emperors, though not the official sovereigns of their dynasties, ruled from the shadows as supreme authorities. Faced with Ye Cheng's rising reputation, how could any court dare to provoke him? Now, gathered before the central dais of the summit hall, those same rulers and ministers straightened their robes and offered deferential bows as Ye Cheng entered. One of the Xuan emperors, a tall figure in obsidian brocade, stepped forward, inclining his head. His tone was polite but laced with genuine respect. "Your Highness Ye Cheng," he said, "are you truly the mysterious powerhouse who has so swiftly risen within the Yingyue divine dynasty?" Seeing Ye Cheng arrive, the directors of the Juxiao auction house sprang to attention. They bowed deeply and stepped forward, eager to escort him into the VIP chambers. But before anyone could speak, a chorus of beastly roars rolled in from afar, followed by the thunderous clatter of wheels. Monks gasped as a line of ornate chariots thundered up to the auction house gates and ground to a halt. That sound. All heads turned to the lead carriage. Seated there was a lone figure draped in jet-black robes. Though human in form, his features looked as if they'd been carved from solid rock, each surface etched with intricate Taoist sigils. His very presence pressed down on the onlookers like a mountain, and the assembled monks found themselves struggling to draw breath. The Silver Armor clan's champion has arrived. Ye Cheng stood at the fringes of the Juxiao auction house's grand hall, listening as hushed murmurs rippled through the gathered cultivators. "They've really gone all out this time," one veteran cultivator whispered to his companion. "Even the Tianhuang overlord is showing up." A ripple of apprehension ran through the crowd. Ye Cheng caught sight of several Xuan emperors exchanging uneasy glances. With the overlord in attendance, bidding on the prized Dao seed and sword spirit fruit would be all but impossible for ordinary contestants. "Looks like our chances have just gone up in smoke," another bidder muttered, lowering his voice. "There's no competing with that kind of power." Moments later, a contingent of warriors clad in gleaming silver armor strode into the hall. Though they weren't formally recognized as a saint clan, the Silver Armor clan was renowned across the 10,000 clans for producing fighters with iron-like defenses and bodies of unbreakable steel. Rumor held that each generation's strongest scions of Silver Armor were handpicked by the mighty Silver Snow Demon clan, recruited as personal vassals and elite guards for its highest-ranking figures. The Silver Snow Demon clan itself needed no introduction. With multiple saints in its ranks, it stood toe-to-toe with the Moon Spirit clan and the Barbarian God clan, two of the wilderness's most feared overlords. Now, allied to Silver Armor's forces, their combined might threatened to sweep away any rival before the first hammer fell. Ye Cheng inhaled slowly, steadying himself. He had come here with a single purpose, to obtain the Dao seed. But faced with these new contenders, from a legendary overlord to an imperial clan backed by demon saints, his path had never seemed more daunting. Yet he refused to waver. The auction was about to begin, and he intended to fight for every last bid. Although the strongest cultivator in this generation of the clan has only reached the Saint Emperor level, their prestige remains unrivaled, so great that even many reigning emperors dare not offend them. Across the 36 frontier states, the overlord's position is as unshakable as Mount Tai. With such backing, Juxiao Auction House naturally dared not cross this scion of the Silver Armor clan. Although he hadn't yet ascended to the Xuan Emperor rank, half of the auction house's supervisors still rose to their feet in deference. "We are honored to welcome the silver-boned Dao Zun," one stepped forward and bowed. "Please, right this way to the VIP chamber." "Your Highness Ye Cheng, this way, please," another supervisor added, guiding Ye Cheng through the hall. A contingent of attendants fell in behind the distinguished silver-boned Dao Zun, while the remaining supervisors bowed respectfully to Ye Cheng. He inclined his head once in acknowledgement, entirely unmoved by the presence of the Dao Zun. After all, this Dao Zun was only a vassal of the Silver Snow Demon clan, and Ye Cheng himself had once slain the lord of the Silver Armor clan, who was also the young master of the Silver Snow Demon clan. Why should he show the slightest concern for these pretenders? But Ye Cheng barely glanced his way, but the silver-boned Taoist master was not so indifferent. The moment he heard the auctioneers call out, "Ye Cheng," his eyes narrowed, greed glittering in their depths as he fixed his gaze on the young man. Leaning forward, the Taoist master rose from his carriage and climbed onto the chariot, towering over Ye Cheng with unmasked arrogance. "Your Highness Ye Cheng? Ye Cheng, is it?" He let the name hang in the air, savoring Ye Cheng's silence. "Are you the mysterious swordsman who has emerged in the Yingyue divine dynasty? The one who claimed the inheritance of the ancient Lu Di tomb?" A cold smile curled at his lips. "My Silver Armor clan has spent years unearthing that very tomb, the final resting place of the Liu Emperor. You intercepted our excavation. Care to explain yourself?" Chapter 342. The silver-boned Taoist venerable's voice was deceptively calm as he swept the gathered cultivators with a single glance. "You will give the Silver Armor clan an explanation." A murmur rippled through the assembly. Ye Cheng let a slow, wry smile play across his lips as he met the venerable's cool gaze. "Explain what?" "It's quite simple." The Taoist's tone turned crisp and unyielding. "Hand over all the relics in the ancient Liu Emperor's tomb, most especially that divine Dao seed the Emperor himself collected." At his words, he raised a single finger. In an instant, formation flags materialized overhead and drifted down to encircle him. From their silken banners issued an imposing aura, the unmistakable pressure of a heavenly emperor, forcing every onlooker to draw in a sharp breath. "Such arrogance," one cultivator hissed under his breath. But before dissent could spread, the nearby elders shot furtive glances at one another and pressed their companions to silence. No one dared openly challenge the Silver Armor clan's will. Over the 36 states of Tianhuang, their authority was absolute, not only by virtue of the infamous Silver Snow Demon clan, but because their own power was simply unmatched. Their clan boasts 1 Saint Emperor, 3 Heavenly Emperors, and over 20 Xuan Emperors, an unrivaled concentration of power in the 36 states of Tianhuang. For years, the Silver Armor clan has coveted the ancient Liu Emperor's tomb. In fact, it was they who clandestinely orchestrated the catastrophe that nearly brought down the Yingyue divine dynasty, all to seize Yunzhou and claim the tomb's ultimate inheritance. To the Silver Armor clan, a lone divine Dao seed would hardly register as valuable. What truly matters is their alliance with the Silver Snow Demon clan, renowned above all others for its mastery of formation arts. By offering a seed that dramatically enhances one's aptitude for divine consciousness cultivation, the Silver Armor clan could secure rewards capable of elevating their sect's foundation to unprecedented heights. But when the Yingyu Empress suddenly appeared, she shattered their carefully laid plans. Ever since, the Silver Armor clan has nursed a bitter grudge, vowing to one day exact their revenge. Ye Cheng had only just claimed the ancient Lu Tomb Manor's inheritance when a commanding presence swept through the air. Yin Dao Zun of the Silver Armor clan, his silver bone robe gleaming like a shard of frost. He dismissed the murmuring crowd with a wave of his hand and fixed Ye Cheng with a steely gaze. As one of the oldest imperial lineages, he began, voice cool and authoritative, "The Silver Armor clan cannot let you walk away with such a prize. Relinquish the inheritance, and we will see that you are well rewarded." Ye Cheng met his challenge calmly, arching an eyebrow. "Rewards? Pray tell, what might you offer?" A faint smile curved Yingu Daozun's lips. "Very simple. A position within our clan. Surrender the inheritance, and from this day forward you shall be a white-robed disciple of the Silver Armor clan." A ripple of reaction spread through the spectators. Within the clan's hierarchy, guest disciples were ranked by robe color. Red robes were the highest honor, white robes the lowest, little more than an entry-level venerable status. Across the 36 states of Tianhuang, every cultivator knew just how limited a white robe truly was. And yet here was Yin Gu Daozun, offering it as the price of Ye Cheng's compliance. Even the most patient human warriors could no longer contain their fury. Yin Gu Daozun's terms were an unmistakable insult, aimed squarely at Ye Cheng and at the entire human race. Sensing the hostile stares of the human cultivators, he tossed his head back and laughed coldly. "What, do you think this price is too low?" he taunted. "In the ancient days, your people were nothing more than fodder for our blood rights. Bestowing upon you the honor of worship is already an unprecedented gift. Or perhaps he let the question hang in the air, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. Dare to challenge the majesty of my imperial bloodline." With those words, Yin Gu Daozun flicked his wrist. In an instant, half of the 49 formation flags that had been circling behind him snapped free and tumbled into the void with deafening crashes. The faint, ethereal pressure of the Emperor of Heaven that had surrounded him coalesced in an overwhelming surge. A wave of cold authority washed over the crowd, snuffing out the flames of anger on the human cultivators' faces and replacing them with awed sobriety. Emperor's formation flags, even at half strength, their imperial power could slay an ordinary heavenly emperor, one onlooker whispered in awe. "The Silver Armor clan's legacy runs deep. How can we possibly withstand this?" another lamented. "I fear for Lord Ye Cheng's safety if this continues," a third added, voice trembling. High above the auction floor, the jade-white banners snapped taut, radiating a palpable imperial chi that sent a shiver through every cultivator present. The auction house stewards exchanged panicked glances and scrambled to summon the presiding emperor for aid. Before they could act, Ye Cheng stepped forward, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Imperial authority?" he mused. In an instant, he vaulted onto a cushion of clouds and, to the gasping crowd's astonishment, dove straight into the heart of the formation. With a single thunderous palm strike, the nearest flag exploded into fragments. "Impossible! The formation didn't even slow him down," someone cried. Stunned silence descended as everyone struggled to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Above the boundless sea of clouds, more than 20 heavenly emperor-level formation flags snapped in the wind, their imperial might coalescing into spiraling streams of divine energy. Light danced along each banner, and though the array remained incomplete, its latent killing force was already enough to unnerve even an Emperor Xuan. The moment Ye Cheng burst into the formation, those torrents of divine power rained down like a meteor shower, battering him from every side. Yet not a single bolt breached his defenses. His protective spiritual aura swallowed each strike whole. The silver-boned Taoist's eyes flickered in surprise, then narrowed with renewed composure. "I underestimated you," he said, voice low and cold. "No wonder you claimed the ancient Liu Emperor's tomb inheritance. But don't fool yourself. Relics alone will never challenge the supremacy of my imperial line." With that, the silver-boned Taoist pressed off the cloud sea and rose into the sky, arms spreading wide as divine power surged from his palms, ready to unleash a counterattack. Streams of pale silver spiritual energy burst from his body, each strand weaving itself into one of 49 formation flags. The banners snapped to attention, cutting through the gathering mists overhead. In an instant, wind and cloud spiraled into a self-contained domain above Ye Cheng, a pocket world of shimmering silver light, crackling Tao runes, and surging divine power, an abyssal weight now bearing down on him. Even cultivators outside this realm felt their energies seize up, frozen in their dantians. No one could summon so much as a wisp of spiritual power. A stunned voice rang out, This is the Silver Armor clan's foundational formation, the Sky Silver Formation Realm. How did the Silver Bone Daozun acquire such a treasure?" Murmurs of fear swept through the ranks. They must have known His Highness Ye Cheng would attend, that this was their plan all along, to trap and capture him. Eyes full of dread fixed on the towering figure of the Silver Bone Daozun, now unstoppable. Ye Cheng's allies watched in helpless sorrow, yet their sympathy could change nothing. An ancient imperial clan had singled out a lone cultivator, and despite Ye Cheng's extraordinary talent, he was hopelessly outmatched. The clan unleashed their supreme formation, a lattice of overwhelming power that no one could withstand. Even a heavenly emperor would have fallen today. Supervisors from the Juxiao auction house lingered at the edge of the battlefield, regret in their eyes. They dared not summon the auction house's resident emperor. It would be futile. The Silver Armor clan had come for Ye Cheng alone. They coveted the Dao seed within him and would not leave until they'd taken it. Not even the Heavenly Emperor could alter this outcome. A collective sigh of resignation rippled through the gathered cultivators. Then Ye Cheng moved. Ensnared by the Tianyin array, every monk around him found their spiritual power sealed. But inside that very formation, Ye Cheng was different. Within his dantian, spiritual energy blazed unchecked, roaring to life like a dragon roused from ancient slumber. In an instant, Ye Cheng vaulted beyond the boundaries of the Tianyin array. "He's broken free?" a monk cried out. "The perfected Tianyin array can't contain His Highness's spiritual power?" another murmured, disbelief ringing in his voice. Perched atop a swirl of cloud mist, Ye Cheng regarded the assembled monks with cool detachment. The Grandmaster Yingu Dao Zun, once so certain he'd trapped the imperial prince, watched his smug smile freeze in horror. Desperate, he waved his hands in complex seals, trying to reassert the array's hold. But it was already too late. At its heart, the Tianyin array had consolidated into a tiny world of silvery radiance, designed to exhaust every trace of spiritual energy. To Ye Cheng, however, that display was nothing more than a soft tickle against his aura. His dantian remained fully intact, and even his defensive spiritual guard was undisturbed. "Is that all the imperial family can muster?" Ye Cheng's voice was low, laced with contempt. The silver-boned Taoist master's cheeks flushed crimson. He opened his mouth to hurl a retort, but before the words could form, Ye Cheng's hand blurred. He condensed a shard of swordlight, its keen edge aimed straight at the Taoist master's throat. Panic exploded in the man's eyes. The Grand Assembly, once so confident in their array's power, fell silent, witnesses to a prince who could not only escape their might, but turn it back upon them in a heartbeat. "Ye Cheng, if you kill me, the imperial family will never forgive you." Before the words were out of his mouth, Ye Cheng's sword arced through the air. In a single, swift stroke, he severed the head of the silver-boned Taoist master. Blood spurted high, its dark spray chilling everyone who witnessed it and plunging the city into a stunned, grave silence. Chapter 343, The Silver-Boned Taoist Master, just killed like that? Oh my heavens, if word of this reaches all of Tianhuang, it will spark utter chaos. This Lord Ye Cheng is insufferable. He even dared slay a patriarch of the Silver Armor clan. A stunned hush fell over the audience. Eyes swung toward Ye Cheng, a mixture of awe and fear settling on every face. The Silver Armor clan was notoriously powerful, an uncrowned king among the 36 states of Tianhuang. Wherever their elite trod, they commanded reverence, even from venerable elders of other great sects. And yet, mere moments ago, Ye Cheng had dispatched their patriarch with ruthless efficiency. By any measure, provocation or not, this was a declaration of defiance against heaven itself. As ripples of shock washed through the hall, Ye Cheng remained impassive. Folding his cloak over one arm, he met the gazes of the Juxiao auction house elders lined up before him. "Shall we resume the auction?" he asked lightly, as if no momentous event had just transpired. "Of course," one of the auction masters stammered, his voice betraying both respect and apprehension. "Your Highness, please, lead the way." A murmur ran through the spectators. None dared speak further, but every mind raced with the implications of what had just occurred. The Silver Armor clan's patriarch, one of Tianhuang's most formidable figures, lay defeated at the hands of this lone cultivator. And now, though the auction was poised to continue, the fragile veneer of order in the realm had been cracked irrevocably. Ye Cheng inclined his head to the auction elders, signaling them to move forward. As they hustled down the polished corridor, whispers trailed in their wake, and an unspoken question hung heavy in the air. Who, if anyone, could stand against a man who dared to slay a legend? Ye Cheng's unexpected calm after toppling the Silver Armor Clan's champion left everyone reeling. Normally, someone who just faced off against a powerhouse would have made a hasty retreat, yet here he was, striding straight into Juxiao Auction House's grand hall, as though he'd only come to browse the wares. The auction staff fell silent the moment he appeared. They'd heard the rumors of his strength, and no one dared interfere. With trembling respect, they bowed and led him to the most exclusive VIP chamber. Word of this spread in an instant, and the gathered cultivators exchanged stunned glances. Whispers filled the room. "Did you see that? He actually stayed for the next auction. He must be mad, or invincible." Even Yunqi Taoist, who had sworn a life oath to accompany Ye Cheng until death, felt his pulse quicken. Ye Cheng had always been bold, but this? How could anyone remain so composed after slaughtering a top-tier warrior under the same roof? Yet, bound by his solemn oath, Yunqi Taoist had no choice but to follow. He forced a polite smile, though unease churned in his chest. Ye Cheng removed his cloak and settled into a high-backed chair. Flicking a casual glance at Yunqi Taoist, he remarked quietly, "You look troubled." Yunqi Taoist stiffened. "Master, I merely—" "Honestly," Ye Cheng interrupted, his voice low and smooth, "if you're uncomfortable here, you're free to revoke your oath. I won't stand in your way." A silence fell. Yunqi Taoist's eyes widened. Every sect scholar knew that a life oath was sacred. To break one required the sanction of heaven itself, or would doom the oathbreaker's very soul. Yet here was Ye Cheng, casually offering him that escape. He swallowed hard, his face paling. You would allow me to cancel my life oath?" Ye Cheng inclined his head. "I'd never force a comrade to share my risks. If you'd rather leave, then go. But if you stay, remember that I expect nothing less than your absolute loyalty." Yunqi Taoist drew in a shuddering breath. This proposition was as terrifying as it was generous. He'd pledged his life without fully understanding the man he served. Now, faced with the chance to flee before even the first gavel fell, he realized how deeply he'd committed himself. He bowed his head low. "Master, I will stay." His voice trembled with resolve. "My life oath stands." Ye Cheng's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. "Good. Now let us see what rare treasures they have in store." He raised a single eyebrow toward the auction gates, where the next lot awaited, and cast a confident shadow over them all. Chapter 7. When the Emperor saw that Ye Cheng was utterly serious, a fleeting warmth crossed his features. Yet he masked it quickly with a rueful smile. "Your Highness, please, don't say such things." "Why not?" Ye Cheng arched a brow. "Are you offended by my loyalty?" "It isn't loyalty alone," the Emperor replied softly. Taoist Yunqi watched the exchange with growing concern. Ye Cheng had made a powerful enemy of the Silver Armor Clan, and once you'd drawn their ire, there was no escaping the consequences. The Silver-Bone Taoist, whom His Majesty had slain, had unearthed the secrets of the Sky Silver Array realm. His position in that clan must have been near all but divine, surely the scion of a celestial emperor. To kill such a figure was to sign one's own death warrant. Even if the Emperor granted Ye Cheng clemency, the Silver Armor Clan would press the matter relentlessly. Their vengeance would not be sated until every trace of insult was expunged. In such a situation, better to stand beside the prince and share his fate than wander alone into a death trap. At least in standing firm, one's name remained unblemished. Hearing Taoist Yunqi's frank appraisal, Ye Cheng could not help but let out a short laugh. He met the Emperor's startled gaze. "You see, it's not just loyalty that binds me." His voice was calm, resolute. "It's honor. Since you insisted, stay. I promise you won't regret it." From beyond the VIP room's polished wood door, the thunderous gong announced the start of the auction. Ye Cheng offered no further explanation, just that quiet, unshakable confidence. "You won't regret your decision today." Taoist Yunqi managed a wry smile at his friend's assurance. The conviction in Ye Cheng's voice was almost contagious, yet deep down he reminded himself of an old truism: the higher the hope, the harder the fall. After all, the Silver Armor Clan had dominated these auctions for years. Could a lone challenger really put them in the shade? With a breath, he pushed his doubts aside and leaned forward, focusing on the grand hall below. The Juxiao auction house more than lived up to its fearsome reputation. Row after row of imperial weapons, miraculous elixirs, and other priceless relics passed before a sea of eager cultivators from Tianhuang's 36 states. Still, to Yunqi's mind, none of those treasures compared to whatever formidable secret Ye Cheng had smuggled into this VIP chamber. Here and now, everything depended on it. Chapter text. Ye Cheng lifted his gaze from the auction catalog and focused once more on the platform before him. Apart from the coveted Sword Affinity Dao Spirit Seed, there lay a fractured ancient steel, its once inked characters worn away by time. Despite its battered surface, faint ripples of internal energy still pulsed through the black stone. Other cultivators eyed it with contempt, dismissing it as worthless debris, but Ye Cheng recognized hidden promise where they saw only ruin. With a single, decisive bid, he claimed the steel at a bottom dollar price. Wrapping it carefully, he planned to return to his study and unravel its mysteries. Then, he turned to the prize everyone had come for, the Sword Affinity Dao Spirit Seed. At the sight of his paddled bid, even the Silver Armor clan's celebrated Dao Master hesitated. Gouging Ye Cheng's unshakable resolve, the Dao Master bowed out rather than drive the price higher. One by one, the remaining contenders fell silent, and Ye Cheng secured the seed unchallenged. When the final gavel fell, he also walked away with the specially prepared sword spirit fruits, each lot sold for barely above its reserve price. The supervisors of Juxiao auction lane stared after him in dismay, their carefully orchestrated finale reduced to a glorious rout. As Ye Cheng exited with both Stella and Spirit treasures in hand, it was clear to all that his reputation for acquiring the impossible was well-deserved. Let's go. It's time for us to leave. After securing the treasures he sought, Ye Cheng rose without a word. With Yunqi Taoist at his side, he strode out of the auction house. No sooner had they crossed the threshold than a thunderous boom split the air. Far above, storm-like clouds churned, and a torrent of divine energy, silver and serpentine, ripped through the heavens. In an instant, the very space within the cloud sea was shattered, rent open by a gaping spatial rift. From that breach emerged more than a dozen figures, each bearing a striking resemblance to the silver-boned Taoist master Ye Cheng had slain earlier. Only now their auras shone far more potent. All were clearly Emperor-level cultivators, their presence heavy with battle-hardened power. At their head strode a figure sheathed in gleaming silver armor. In his hand he carried a crescent moon scimitar, its blade etched with the ancient Panlong Dao pattern and humming with raw, crackling energy. As he stepped forward, the leader's aura surged, soaring directly into the heavenly Emperor realm. Whispers rippled through the onlookers. Is that the Silver Lake Heavenly Emperor, one of the Silver Armor clan's 3 Heavenly Emperors? Ye Cheng's eyes narrowed. The real storm was just beginning. Chapter Hanks, the Panlong Heavenly Sword. A collective gasp rose from the assembly. His cultivation, he's reached the late Heavenly Emperor stage, someone whispered. Look at that blade, another murmured. Isn't it the Panlong Heavenly Sword? A Saint Emperor-grade treasure the Silver Snow Demon clan bestowed on the Silver Armor clan. Incredible, a third voice breathed. A late Heavenly Emperor wielding a Saint Emperor weapon. He's unbeatable in this realm. Whitened faces turned toward the Silver Armor clan's elite warriors as they formed a semicircle around the arena floor. But many observers also stole sympathetic glances at Ye Cheng, who stood a short distance away. He was the very man who'd slain the Silver Armor clan's revered Silverbone Dao Master, an act that had condemned him in the eyes of the Silver Lake Emperor and the dozen Silver Armor clan emperors gathered here. The Silver Lake Emperor ignored the crowd's awed whispers. With a swift, calculating glance, he fixed his gaze on Ye Cheng's aura. In that instant, his eyes burned with unbridled murderous intent. Insignificant ant of the human race, you stole the ancient Lutu mansion from my people and slaughtered the descendants of my emperor. Silence. Ye Cheng's voice remained perfectly calm. He had just obtained the Dao seed and was desperate to return to Luotian Academy to refine the seed and advance his 6 paths reincarnation body. But the Silver Armor clan kept ambushing him, and his patience was wearing thin. With a sudden whoosh, a dazzling arc of sword light cut through the void. Its brilliance was blinding, its murderous intent palpable, as it carved a path straight toward the dozen or so Silver Armor clan warriors hovering above the clouds. How dare you! Presumptuous worm! You actually dared to draw your sword first? In a heartbeat, the radiant blade spanned thousands of feet and materialized before the assembled Silver Armor clan leaders. Their faces drained of color, eyes wide with shock and fury. Seize that human brat! Don't kill him outright. I want to savor his agony first. Carry out the execution here in the city, and let the name of my Silver Armor clan echo across the land. At once, the Xuan Emperor of the Silver Armor clan unleashed a deafening roar that trembled mountains and rivers, summoning the full might of his clan's innate magic. His blood burned with fury, his spirit power surged, and before the wide-eyed onlookers, his body swelled into a towering silver mountain bristling with divine force. Oh, oppressive, it could even daunt a celestial emperor. Make way, his voice thundered from the summit of that gleaming peak. With absolute conviction, he surged forward, aiming straight for Ye Cheng's sword light. Behind him, the Silver Lake Emperor and his retinue stood composed and confident, certain of the Xuan Emperor's unstoppable power. In the next heartbeat, their assurance shattered. The massive silver mountain collided with Ye Cheng's blade, and was cleaved in two as effortlessly as tofu beneath a razor-sharp cleaver. The Xuan Emperor's victorious roar twisted into a strangled scream as his immense form collapsed back into human size. Silvery ichor spurted skyward when he was severed at the waist, slain in a single, decisive stroke. Chapter 344. Plop. The body of the silver-armored Xuan Emperor hit the ground with a hollow thud, eyes still frozen in shock. Around him, the Silver-Armored clan's champions, led by the Silver Lake Heavenly Emperor, went pale. They had finally realized this young man, Ye Cheng, was not to be trifled with. Don't underestimate him, roared the Silver Lake Heavenly Emperor. He swept up the Panlong Heavenly Sword and charged. At his signal, the other emperors of the clan sprang into action, each unleashing silver-white streaks of divine light that wove together overhead. The crushing weight of their aura felt like millions of tons, capable of pulverizing mountains and rending the sky itself. Worse still, their assault concealed a forbidden art. Each beam of divine light carried a suppression technique designed to disrupt an enemy's spiritual flow. Should the cultivation gap prove too great, it could even seal the target's energy within the Dantian, leaving them utterly powerless. Ye Cheng steadied himself as the tempest of light descended. To survive this onslaught, he would have to call on every ounce of his strength and every hidden skill he possessed. The Silver Armor clan's innate divine power blazed to life under the Silver Lake Emperor's command, its might pushed to the absolute limit. Even if you truly are a perfect existence of the Heavenly Emperor realm, the Silver Lake Emperor sneered, your spiritual power will be sealed once we combine our forces. He swept the Panlong Heavenly Sword in a wide arc. Its crescent-shaped blade shone with a silver radiance as he poured every ounce of divine energy into the strike, pressing down on Ye Cheng with merciless force. A savage delight gleamed in his eyes. Is that so? Ye Cheng murmured, lips curling into a faint, confident smile. Without another word, he lifted a hand. In the next heartbeat, he dissolved into shadows and reappeared behind one of the Silver Armor clan's Xuan Emperors as silently as a wraith. His spiritual energy crystallized into a shaft of pure sword light. With a muted puff, the Xuan Emperor's eyes froze mid-blink. His aura shattered completely, and he stiffened in midair before collapsing to the ground, utterly lifeless and without a single sound. Using the same technique, Ye Cheng once again unleashed his spiritual power. He moved like a wraith or a bolt of lightning, energy rippling outward in merciless waves. Every pause in his sweeping strikes drew fresh blood and felled another silver-armored emperor. Each motion felt like a humiliating slap to the Silver Lake Emperor's face. At first, the Silver Lake Emperor's anger flared, but it quickly turned to horror as he realized that most of his elite Xuan Emperors had fallen, each slain by Ye Cheng's lone sword. Damn it, he hissed. This human boy's power exceeds the Heavenly Emperor realm. We must summon our ancestors' aid. Fear took hold of him. He could not risk one more moment in battle. In a blink, he flashed away from the front lines and sped off into the distance without looking back. His retreat was so swift and fluid that his remaining Xuan Emperors barely registered it. Still they fought on against Ye Cheng, sacrificing themselves to buy time for their leader's escape. Retreat, He's retreating? The presiding official's words faltered, disbelief plain on his face. Even the spectators high above gasped. Below, every cultivator in the city had an unobstructed view of the showdown, and they could hardly believe what they were seeing. The mighty Silver Lake, heavenly emperor of the Silver Armor clan, renowned for his unshakable pride, was turning tail and fleeing in utter panic. For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, like a dam breaking, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Human cultivators, young prodigies, and veteran masters alike leapt to their feet, shouts of exhilaration filling the air. His Highness Ye Cheng is invincible. The Silver Lake Emperor is running before him. Long live Prince Ye Cheng. Their voices echoed off the distant mountains, me, ration shining in every eye. Even the clan's other Xuan emperors, locked in a desperate life-and-death struggle with Ye Cheng, stared in stunned silence. They had matched their foe blow for blow, only to witness their supreme leader abandon the field. Shock rippled through them. The Silver Lake Heavenly Emperor had never before suffered such humiliation. High above the city, the cheers grew louder still. In that moment, one truth resounded across the land. Ye Cheng stood unrivaled. From a distance, the Silver Lake Emperor had already retreated to the mouth of the spatial rift. Fury flared on the faces of his remaining guards. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" one shouted. "You'd abandon us and run off alone." "Stop him. I'll call on our ancestors for aid. Without them, we're all dead, unburied." Emperor Yinhu Tian merely smirked, neither flushing nor faltering. He began to step toward the shimmering tier in reality, as if ready to flee. A cold chuckle cut through the tension. Ye Cheng's calm voice carried easily on the wind. "Call on your ancestors? That won't be necessary. I'll go myself." He advanced. In a heartbeat, a brilliant arc of rainbow light cleaved the clouds, sword chi dancing along its curve. Wherever Ye Cheng passed, crimson flower-like stains of blood blossomed in the air. Before Emperor Xuan of the Silver Armor clan could even utter a cry, the rainbow blade descended, severing his head with unerring precision. His life flickered out in an instant. No, impossible. Emperor Yinhu gasped, white as death, his confidence shattered by Ye Cheng's decisive strike. He let out a desperate cry and lunged into the rift, but even then his speed was pitiful compared to Ye Cheng's. "Too slow," Ye Cheng said coolly. A crystalline arc of rainbow light coalesced around him, and with a single stroke, it severed the Silver Armor clan emperor's head. Gasps rose from the onlooking cultivators. "Emperor Yinhu is dead?" The fallen emperor twitched once, then dropped from the clouds with a dull thud. Faces turned pale, shock and disbelief rippled through the crowd. Yet as the initial horror began to fade, a sharp-eyed disciple pointed toward the gash in space the emperor had torn open. "Look, he really went into the rift." "What? Impossible!" Excited murmurs erupted. Taoist Xianxia and the others launched themselves skyward, peering into the swirling portal. There, just beyond the shimmering threshold, they saw Ye Cheng's back vanish into the swirling void. A soft rumble echoed through the air as the rift's light dimmed. In that moment, everyone knew. Ye Cheng had slipped away, leaving only the echo of his triumph behind. Everyone swallowed hard, awe for Ye Cheng swelling in their chests like a rising tide. "Quick, bring the spirit communication talisman," someone barked. "I must inform the patriarch at once." "Send word back to the divine dynasty immediately," another added, "and tell every cultivator there, when they encounter His Highness Ye Cheng next time, they are to show him the utmost respect. No more scorn." Bit by bit, the disciples and emissaries around them snapped out of their stupefied state. Yet the city's atmosphere remained electric. Emperors and envoys from every region were already unleashing their magical transmissions, racing to inform the High Lords of the Divine Dynasty about Ye Cheng's latest exploits. Though his hunt for the Silver Armor clan was still underway, the outcome hung in the balance. But one thing was indisputable. The speed and ferocity with which Ye Cheng had dispatched the Silver Lake Emperor and his guards spoke volumes. Even if he hadn't yet ascended to the rank of Saint Emperor, his power rivaled theirs. A cultivator of such caliber need not obliterate the entire Silver Armor clan to compel them to think twice before crossing him, and to ensure they never again underestimate the prince of their dynasty. Now that everyone knew who he was, how could they fail to show him the proper respect? Word of Ye Cheng's arrival spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the divine dynasty, and even the ears of its highest rulers. Yet when the news reached the inner court, shock gave way to hesitation. This Lord Ye Cheng is undeniably powerful and deserving of honor, one king admitted, but he's openly sworn to annihilate the Silver Armor clan. Of course, another shot back. The Silver Armor clan has always been vindictive. If Ye Cheng tracks them down and destroys them, we'll all be safer for it. But suppose he doesn't succeed, a third voice warned. He might escape with his life, but if we've already paraded his glory before everyone, the Silver Armor clan will turn their hatred on us next. A tense silence fell over the council. At last, the kings exchanged reluctant nods. They would hold the report in reserve and wait for developments before making any public proclamation. Meanwhile, deep within the city walls, Taoist Xianxia stood frozen in disbelief, every question racing through his mind. Though he'd long absorbed his master Ye Cheng's confidence, he never dreamed Ye Cheng's power would be so absolute. The Silver Lake Emperor had fallen under his hand as easily as one might swat a chicken. Serving such a man was both an honor and a rare opportunity. Just as Xianxia Taoist's excitement peaked, a cautious voice broke in. Brother Xianxia, since you're a follower of His Highness Ye Cheng, what's your take on His Highness's prospects after today's victory? Xianxia Taoist turned toward the questioner. Aside from the Xuan Emperor, who had come over to ask, the entire assembly fixed him with burning curiosity. Everyone knew Xianxia Taoist was one of Ye Cheng's disciples. With Ye Cheng himself absent, they looked to Xianxia for confirmation of his master's true strength, and, above all, whether the Silver Lake clan would now tremble before him. After all, who better to ask than someone who had witnessed His Highness's might firsthand? Xianxia Taoist felt the eager eyes of the crowd upon him. He drew in a steady breath, recalling Ye Cheng's cool, confident smile and the genuine admiration that had shone in his eyes. So, he announced, what do you think the result will be? He paused, letting the anticipation build. Then he added with complete conviction, if you ask me, it's 100% in his favor. A murmur ran through the young prodigies gathered around. They all held Ye Cheng in high esteem already, yet even they exchanged uneasy glances. A certainty this absolute felt impossible, recklessly bold even. Before anyone could voice their doubts, a tremendous roar split the air. Heads snapped upward as a brilliant blade of light appeared on the horizon, blazing thousands of miles overhead. In a single, breathtaking arc, it plunged earthward, and where it struck, a pillar of divine radiance shot straight up, piercing the heavens beyond count. Xianxia Taoist, along with every cultivator within a 1,000-mile radius, found themselves holding their breath, hearts pounding at the sheer force of that celestial display. Is that the sword light unleashed by His Highness Ye Cheng? Wait, did it strike the ancestral lands of the Silver Armor clan? The monks stared at one another, stunned. In a heartbeat, their shock turned to urgency. Drawing on their most powerful body techniques, they tore through the void and raced toward the impact point. Nearly a full day later, the first squad of monks arrived. Before them lay the once revered ancestral grounds of the Silver Armor clan, now a field of deep gouges and smoking craters. Every face went pale. My gods, His Highness Ye Cheng has truly sundered the heavens this time. Chapter 345. Countless cultivators stood frozen, their eyes wide with disbelief. The ancestral stronghold of the Silver Armor clan, the former overlord of all 36 states of Tianhuang, had been razed to the ground. Not a trace of its famed might remained. The Silver Armor clan, destroyed? They murmured, scarcely daring to believe it. The warriors who had rushed to the scene swallowed hard, their hearts pounding. They had expected to find powerful survivors, some final stand from the clan's elite, but all they saw was ash and silence. The shock in their veins grew heavier with each passing moment. That very day, word of the clan's annihilation, and the name of the man behind it, shook the entire southern wilderness. Ye Cheng, the unassuming young cultivator whose reputation had barely begun to spread, had single-handedly brought down an ancient imperial family led by a self-proclaimed holy emperor. No one had believed such a swift victory possible. Most had assumed the battle would drag on for months, perhaps even years. Yet in a single, devastating strike, Ye Cheng shattered the Silver Armor clan's centuries-old dominion. The news traveled faster than any Linglong messenger artifact. Divine Dynasty sects that had been preparing for a prolonged conflict instead broadcast his triumph at top speed, eager to seize whatever advantage they could. By nightfall, every corner of the Divine Dynasty buzzed with the name Ye Cheng. Cultivators whispering in tea houses, strategists debating in hidden halls, and rival sects plotting in the dark. The once mighty Silver Armor clan lay in ruins, and a new legend was rising from its ashes. He ordered his own disciples to show nothing but respect toward Ye Cheng, and the cultivators of the Yunqi Divine Dynasty under his command. After all, only someone of Saint Emperor caliber could have wiped out the Silver Armor clan so decisively, and Ye Cheng had likely already achieved the pinnacle of that realm. While that level of power might not have stood out across the entire southern wilderness, within the 36 states it was utterly unrivaled. Yet even a swift, brutal victory carries hidden risks. The Silver Armor clan served as a vassal to the ancient Silver Snow Demon clan, and sooner or later, word of their destruction would reach their patron. When that happened, the Silver Snow Demon clan would almost certainly intervene, and nobody could predict how Ye Cheng would fare against such formidable foes. Fortunately for him, those troubles lay far in the future. For now, the Silver Snow Demon clan was at the edge of the continent, while Ye Cheng stood right before them. As word of his deeds spread, Ye Cheng soon earned the unofficial title of uncrowned sovereign of the 36 states of Tianhuang. At first, he'd brushed aside such lofty praise. He'd destroyed the Silver Armor clan only because he'd grown tired of their constant provocations and wanted to send a clear warning to anyone else who might trouble him. His true priority was refining the 6th Great Tao Spirit Seed, a painstaking process that would demand at least a year of secluded cultivation. He had neither time nor patience for trivial distractions. Before long, however, Ye Cheng realized he had underestimated the influence of the purple chi cauldron of all living beings. By crushing the Silver Armor clan, he didn't just make an example of them. He also garnered the admiration and loyalty of more than 70% of the human cultivators across the 36 states. Though none among them could match the innate talent of prodigies like Changsun Ming or Luo Li, their collective blessing proved an extraordinarily rich boon to Ye Cheng's destiny. Ye Cheng's fortunes from the northern wilderness compounded his growth, sending his cultivation efficiency soaring. When he first set out to refine the 6th Tao Spirit Seed, with the aid of the Sword Spirit Fruit, he'd conservatively estimated it would take at least a year. Yet after only 3 months of secluded retreat, he succeeded in wholly absorbing the seed. As predicted, he emerged with his first acquired divine body fully formed. Deep within the spiritual domain of Luotian Academy, Ye Cheng opened his eyes. Behind him, 6 streams of brilliant light coalesced and shot skyward, weaving together into a towering 100-foot celestial wheel. Its 6-colored radiance pulsed with an otherworldly energy that spoke of life and death, yin and yang, destruction and creation, ruin and rebirth. Every secret of reincarnation lay encoded in its turning spokes, an inherited power that would now bolster Ye Cheng's martial prowess, the 6 paths of reincarnation body. Although it isn't listed among the 3,000 great magical powers, it rivals the Chaos Great Magic Power in every respect. Its name is Reincarnation Great Magic Power. This system of magic contains countless lethal techniques, and Ye Cheng could already feel its power resonating through his veins, even in these earliest stages of mastery. Yet the greatest surprise lay elsewhere. Because he already possessed a chaos body, the upper limit of the 6 paths reincarnation body had been significantly raised. Where most practitioners could only condense 6 Tao spirit seeds, he now had the potential to merge 9. Once that fusion was complete, he could combine his innate chaos body with the 6 paths reincarnation body to achieve a higher form, Hunyuan immortal body. Staring at the readout on his system panel, Ye Cheng's eyes shone with excitement. Both the 6 paths reincarnation body and the innate chaos body were currently only first-grade immortal life forms. But the Hunyuan immortal body, born of their synthesis, would be 5th-grade immortal life, an astronomical leap in power and rank. In the cultivation world, advancing 1 grade was already extraordinary. Jumping 4 grades at once bordered on legend. For the first time, Ye Cheng truly grasped the scale of his potential. With the reincarnation great magic power in hand and the path to Hunyuan immortal body laid before him, his destiny was about to be rewritten. Ye Cheng had been cultivating for many years, yet the highest grade immortal life he'd ever witnessed belonged to Yi Ruoshui, and even hers was only a third-grade immortal spirit. Still, in his mind, he dared to dream. If he could break through to fifth-grade immortal life, then wait for Ruoshui's spirit to fully awaken, and fuse with hers, what extraordinary legacy might they leave behind? The very thought quickened his pulse and set his ambitions aflame. But as powerful as his Hunyuan immortal body was, merging immortal lives was no simple task. He'd already consumed 6 Dao spirit seeds in succession, each fusion exacting its toll in time, energy, and refinement. With every successful absorption, the standards for the next seed only grew more stringent. Last time, he'd been forced to settle for a lone Dao spirit seed, no auxiliary spiritual objects to amplify its potency, no rare fusion talismans to guide it through the 6 paths of reincarnation. Its imperfect integration had slowed his progress. Next, he vowed, would be different. When he sought out his next Dao spirit seed, it would not only come paired with powerful auxiliary spiritual objects, but also bear the imprimatur of multiple sects, ensuring its lineage was pure and its grade exceptionally high. Only then could he hope to break decisively into the realm of 5th-grade immortal life, and secure the dazzling future he envisioned for himself, for Yi Ruoshui, and for the child that would one day carry their combined immortal legacy. Whatever auxiliary spiritual tool I use, it has to be at least saint level. Emperor-grade items like the Sword Spirit Fruit or the Fire Lotus wouldn't make the cut here. Dao Spirit Seeds were common enough, but any truly effective aid was nearly impossible to find. Ye Cheng shook his head, but he felt no real disappointment. Rarity meant little when one's own power spoke volumes. Even without having fused the Hunyuan immortal body, he still benefited overwhelmingly from the blessing of the 6 H's of reincarnation, and his trump cards were legendary: the immortal execution sword formation, the purple chi cauldron of all living beings, among others. Long ago he could have swept aside quasi-saints. Unleashed fully, those secrets would let him stand toe-to-toe even against perfected saints. Dispatch a team, he instructed his lieutenants. Scan this wilderness for any hidden treasures or spirit artifacts. Don't let anything slip by. They saluted and moved out at once. Leaning back, Ye Cheng's mind drifted to the spoils he'd claimed at the Juxiao auction house. Beyond the sword spirit fruit and the seed, there was something else, something he'd almost forgotten, tucked away among his holdings. Ye Cheng had also acquired a fragment of an ancient steel, so mysterious that at the time, even his spiritual power couldn't probe its secrets. But since awakening his 6 reincarnation bodies, his cultivation had leapt to new heights. Drawing the stela fragment from his robes, he quietly gathered his mind. Instantly, behind him flickered visions of the reincarnation treasure wheel, the purple chi cauldron of all beings, and other legendary treasures. Chaotic chi, born of his chaotic body, poured down, while divine light shone through his sea of consciousness, brightening and crystallizing his soul. His awareness condensed to a single, luminous spark that bathed the steel fragment in its glow. A low, resonant hum rose in the still air. Under that divine radiance, the fragment began to vibrate, the fractured Dao patterns along its surface igniting with a fireless blaze. Before Ye Cheng's astonished eyes, the stone instantly turned to dust and drifted away on the breeze, leaving only its original form bared at last. A small jade tower slipped free from the swirling ashes and fell to the stone floor with a clear melodic clink. At first, Ye Cheng barely noticed the sound, but the very next instant, his eyes snapped open. That single chime had sent a shock through his spirit, brushing against every corner of his consciousness. A subtle awakening stirred within him, as though the sound itself carried the promise of enlightenment. What was the origin of this tiny jade tower, and why did its ringing possess such uncanny power? Chapter 346. Ye Cheng's eyes flew open in astonishment. With his current prowess and cultivation, ordinary enlightenment treasures no longer had any effect on him, yet this tiny tower seemed capable of bringing him nearly to enlightenment with nothing more than its resonance. Such a treasure had to be of the highest order. He lifted the miniature tower into his hand and probed it with his awareness. Its surface was as immaculate and translucent as white jade, seemingly flawless. Beneath that perfect exterior, however, flowed profound Taoist energies that even Ye Cheng found difficult to decipher. After a careful examination, he realized that this little tower was not the simple enlightenment device he had first suspected. Assisting one's enlightenment was only one of its many functions. Though still vague, a subtle opportunity stirred within the treasure, a mysterious harmony with a certain realm between heaven and earth. More intriguing still, Ye Cheng sensed that the tower acted as a kind of token, granting access to hidden secret realms and divine relics rarely encountered by mortals. Lost in thought, Ye Cheng closed his eyes for a moment, absorbing the implications of his discovery. This small jade tower could reshape his path to enlightenment, and perhaps even open doors to hidden worlds. With a steadying breath, he prepared to unlock its deeper mysteries. Ye Cheng tapped his finger on the desk and sent an urgent order to his vassal. Find everything there is to know about this Jade Pagoda token. He almost smirked when the reply came back so quickly. A secret realm token shaped like a Jade Pagoda? In our territory, the most famous tokens are those granting entry to the abandoned pagoda, but they're usually cast from copper. Only a handful of quasi-saint sects are ever entrusted with the gold pagoda token, reported Taoist Xianxia, bowing with a puzzled look on his face. I've never heard of a jade abandoned pagoda token. Ye Cheng's dark eyes narrowed. Then tell me everything you know about the abandoned pagoda. And its tokens, he ordered. Yes, master. Xianxia bowed again, then began his explanation in careful, measured tones. The abandoned pagoda stands at the heart of the wasteland, one of the 13 realms that make up the northern frontier. Centuries ago, only cultivators who had reached the pinnacle of the flying immortal stage dared to tame that perilous domain. They laid the very foundations of the realm itself. Over time, their Taoist magic, the legacy they left behind when they ascended to immortal status, has all but faded into legend. Still, scattered records and whispers of hidden treasures endure, along with the copper tokens that grant entry to the ruined towers. Gold tokens are almost unheard of, and a jade one. That would be unprecedented. Xianxia paused, meeting Ye Cheng's gaze. If such a token truly exists, it could mean the abandoned pagoda holds secrets far greater than anyone imagined. Ye Cheng's expression remained unreadable, but inside he was already plotting his next move. A Jade Pagoda token, if genuine, would be the key to unlocking mysteries lost to time, and he intended to claim it for himself. Ye Cheng stood in awe as the chamber before him seemed to breathe with ancient power. He had just learned that the Taoist treasure passed down through the ages was none other than the legendary Wasteland Tower. There are countless pocket realms hidden inside the Wasteland Tower, his master explained, voice low and reverent. Each was carved out by the Lord of the Wasteland himself, a master who spent his lifetime gathering Taoist relics and arcane lore. When his sect fell, some disciples are said to have fled into these realms, preserving his teachings among their secluded worlds to this very day. Ye Cheng's heart pounded. Could it be true that the Lord's lineage survived within those secret worlds? No one knew for certain. No direct descendant had ever emerged. Yet the tower's mysteries were real and waiting to be unraveled. There is one caveat, his master continued. The Wasteland Tower opens its gates only in a great era. When that time comes, any cultivator holding a valid token may step through its threshold and claim whatever opportunities or dangers lie within. Clutching the jade token that hung at his waist, Ye Cheng felt destiny stirring. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. The Wasteland Tower held the key to his future, and perhaps the secret to reviving a lost age of Taoist wisdom. Ye Cheng listened intently as Taoist Xianxia unfolded the legend before him. There have always been a handful of fortunate souls who claimed the supreme inheritance of the desolate tower and soared to unrivaled heights, Xianxia began, his gaze distant. But the Lord of the Desolate Realm's legacy eludes cultivators for countless ages. Now its existence is little more than a fable. With each word, Ye Cheng's eyes shone ever brighter. The tiny tower he held in his palm, it had to be one of the coveted tokens that granted entry to the desolate tower. In that instant, He knew its value far exceeded the talismans of most sects, and the treasures hidden within the tower would be on an even grander scale. Hope surged in Ye Cheng's chest. His goal was to fuse and refine the Hunyuan immortal body, and he desperately needed rare auxiliary spirit items. Of all the legendary realms he could explore, none promised greater reward than the desolate tower. "When does the tower open its gates?" he asked eagerly. Taoist Yunqi shook his head. "That I cannot say for certain. The opening is governed by the will of heaven and earth, unpredictable as the winds. Yet in my years of searching, I have gathered fragments of information, clues that may yet reveal the next opportunity." A fierce anticipation ran through Ye Cheng. If he could decipher those clues and step through the tower's threshold, the path to immortal ascension would stretch before him like a boundless sky. Across the wilderness, and this is only speaking of the more accessible regions, countless cultivators from the 36 states of Tianhuang have by chance obtained tokens granting entry to the desolate tower. These tower tokens come in two varieties. The rare golden token endures indefinitely, but the far more common copper token is a single-use item. The moment its bearer steps into the desolate tower, it combusts into ashes and vanishes. Before each incarnation of the desolate tower, vast numbers of these copper tokens materialize, scattered throughout the wilds like hidden treasures awaiting their fated owners. Right now, the untamed lands are brimming with freshly born tokens, a sure sign that the desolate tower's arrival draws near. As Taoist Yunqi recounts these details, Ye Cheng's anticipation grows with every word. Without hesitation, he sets out into the wilderness to procure 2 more Dao spirit seeds to accompany him on the coming journey. Ye Cheng had just entered the desolate tower and spent several days preparing. He'd assimilated the 2 great Dao spirit seeds into his body and cultivated tirelessly, readying himself to search for auxiliary spirits within the tower's mysterious depths. Then one day, buzz! The jade pagoda in Ye Cheng's arms began to tremble and resonate, sending a wave of arcane energy surging through his body. His spirit leapt in response and surprise gleamed in his eyes. The desolate tower is activating. He glanced upward. Guided by the jade pagoda's aura, he sensed, far off at the edge of the world, a monumental, ethereal tower tearing through the void and descending toward this land. At that same moment, across the wilderness's great sects, alarms sounded and trumpets blared. Not only the imperial powers, but even the quasi-saint and true saint sects roared to life. Their young heirs and disciples, each clutching a token of the desolate tower, turned their eager gazes toward the sky, hearts burning with anticipation. Deep within the mountain heart of the Taiyan sect, a quasi-saint faction renowned across the northern wilderness, lay the sect's most accred spiritual ground. At its highest terrace stood a little girl of no more than 8 or 9, her dark robes fluttering in the thin air. Clutched in her small hand was a golden pagoda, softly vibrating as it tuned into the whereabouts of a great treasure. "A tower inheritance," she murmured, eyes shining. "One of the greatest legacies in the wilds. If father were here, he'd certainly seek it out." This girl was Gu Yiren. Beside her stood another pupil of the sect, a tall, proud young woman of 17 or 18, also clad in black. To any member of the Yunjiao clan, an ancient saintly house whose formidable disciples patrolled these lands, the sight would have been staggering. For this was Mo Yunjiao, the clan's eldest daughter, whom Gu Yiren had compelled to follow her and be apprenticed to the Taiyan sect. And yet, instead of showing anger or shame, Mo Yunjiao's head was held high, her expression utterly composed. Had her own powerful kin witnessed her here, quietly standing by Gu Yiren's side, their astonishment would have known no bounds. When Gu Yiren's eyes met his, there wasn't a shred of anger, let alone hatred, just pure, unbridled fascination. It was as if she'd uncovered a hidden realm that no one else had ever glimpsed. And the moment she spoke her father's name, that fiery spark in her gaze burned even hotter, sending the temperature in the room soaring and leaving Xiao Yiren uncharacteristically at a loss. Chapter 347. The Yunjiao clan is one of the ancient holy lineages. In its golden age, more than a dozen saints emerged from its ranks. Though its power has waned, the clan still boasts numerous quasi-saints and several saint-level killing treasures. As the eldest daughter of the Yunjiao clan, Mo Yunjiao's talent and strength are unrivaled. At 17, she has already broken through to the Xuanzun realm and earned a place among the top 10 on the wilderness rankings. Her meteoric rise and youthful success set her apart from every peer. True, a few prodigies outrank her, but all of them are much older, which only deepens Mo Yunjiao's confidence in her own supremacy. Yet that confidence has been shattered by her recent encounter with the boy Ye Cheng. Had she not witnessed it with her own eyes, she would never have believed that a child under 10 could possess the power to sweep away a Xuanzun cultivator. Even Taiyan sect, once counted among the great Holy Lands, could scarcely produce such a prodigy in its current decline. Mo Yunjiao's lips curved into a wry smile as she replayed the battle in her mind. The speed, the precision, the fearless mastery of technique, everything about Ye Cheng defied her expectations. Where did such a genius come from, she wondered, and what destiny lay before him? She must have an extraordinary background. With that thought guiding her, Mo Yunjiao's lingering doubts melted away. She had been brought back to the Taiyan sect as a hostage by Gu Yiren, and in the brief time since her arrival, she had learned both the young goddess's story and the true state of the sect. The Taiyan sect, like Mo Yunjiao's own clan, was once a formidable demigod powerhouse, but now it was even more decadent than the Yunjiao clan. Only a single elder demigod remained to prop up its failing prestige. Gu Yiren's sudden emergence as the Taiyan goddess, Mo Yunjiao discovered, was nothing more than a fluke of fate. According to the scant records she managed to dig up, Gu Yiren had tumbled through a rift in time and space straight into the sect's inheritance chamber. The sect didn't anoint her goddess because of any long years of cultivation or spectacular achievements. They did it because the sect's ultimate treasure, the Xiantian Taiyan divine fire, recognized her as its master. The Xiantian Taiyan divine fire was no ordinary flame. It ranked among the top 10 on the Heaven and Earth Divine Fire list and formed the very bedrock of the Taiyan sect's power. In the early days of the Taiyan sect, its legendary founder wielded a single, incomparable treasure to dominate every saint with his quasi-saint cultivation, forging an immortal reputation for the sect. But after his death, the fabled Taiyan divine fire fell into a deep slumber. It would only stir and unveil its awe-inspiring power when the sect stood on the brink of annihilation. For generations, no disciple could win its favor or command its flames. All that changed with Ye Cheng's arrival. Barely 2 or 3 months after he joined, the Xianxian-level Taiyan divine fire awakened at his side, sanctioning him as the sect's new Taiyan god during this critical era of transition. Yet the fire's recognition came with a caveat. It acknowledged only Ye Cheng's potential vessel, not his unquestioned mastery. Despite the sect's tireless cultivation of his talents, how much could their training really enhance a newcomer's combat prowess? In truth, Ye Cheng's true strength still lay rooted in the powerful clan from which he sprang. Mo Yunjiao's heart skipped a beat when Gu Yiren casually spoke of her father. How powerful must he be to father a prodigy like her? Mo Yunjiao thought, her mind racing. If I could forge a bond with a family like that, even the Qingjiao clan wouldn't dare bully the Yunjiao clan anymore. Her rising excitement, however, was cut short by Yiren's calm, almost adult tone. She let out a quiet sigh. Sister Yunjiao, I know exactly what you're imagining, but I have to be honest. I've never even met my father. I don't know if he's still wandering the wildlands or if he's already ascended the steps of the wilderness tower. Yiren's young face grew serious. You can't count on my father to protect you. If you want real security, you'd better hope your own clan becomes strong enough to stand up to the Qingjiao. Mo Yunjiao froze, panic replacing her earlier glee. You know about me? Yiren gave her a level look, as if amused by the question. Do you really think I'm just a naive child who will be cowed by threats? Do you take me for someone you can manipulate? And with that quiet challenge, the air between them crackled with unspoken defiance, neither child willing to back down. Gu Daoxuan, the youngest of the Gu family, was born with a holy body. He learned to read in a month and to write in 3, and by the time he was only 1 year old, he could already erect a Taoist formation. Yet despite his precocious talent and cunning intellect, he was no match for his elder sister, who had been swindling his monthly allotment of spiritual stones since he was a child. From their earliest days, the siblings Gu Yunxi and Gu Qingchen set the standard for them all, regaling everyone with stories of the outside world and passing on every skill they'd acquired in their travels. Under their watchful eyes, no one in the Gu family ever appeared naive before outsiders. Had they been otherwise, Ye Cheng would never have felt confident enough to send his two little brothers, the brilliant Gu Daoxuan and the ever-watchful Gu Yiren, into the fairy secret realm to train ahead of the rest. And then there was Mo Yunjiao. When she first arrived in the secret realm, Gu Yiren had noted her fierce, almost belligerent attitude. Although Mo Yunjiao now stood as Gu Yiren's sworn follower in name, everyone understood the real reason she knelt. It was Gu Yiren's extraordinary power. In that hidden realm, Gu Yiren had not only defeated Mo Yunjiao herself, but had also overwhelmed the Yunjiao clan elders who once dominated the place. Had she lacked that supreme strength, Mo Yunjiao would never have bowed so easily. After escorting Mo Yunjiao back to the Taiyan sect, Gu Yiren immediately invoked her status as the sect's divine emissary to probe Mo Yunjiao's background and the secrets of the Yunjiao clan. To ordinary cultivators, the clan's affairs were almost entirely opaque. But the Taiyan sect, though in decline, still ranked among the quasi-saint traditions and possessed the means to investigate without difficulty. Within days, detailed reports reached Gu Yiren. Deep in the wilderness lay two ancient saint clans infused with true dragon blood, the Yunjiao and their closest allies, the Qingjiao. For centuries, these two houses had intermarried, their dragon lineages complementing one another to create an unbreakable bond. That balance held until 1,000 years ago, when a singular genius arose from the Qingjiao clan. Cultivating rapidly to the saint realm, he upset the long-standing parity between the clans and set in motion the rivalry that endures to this day. Under Ye Cheng's leadership, the next millennium saw every gifted member of the Yunjiao clan, regardless of gender, married off into the Qingjiao clan, their children inheriting Qingjiao bloodlines from birth. Originally, both clans had been mere quasi-saint sects, but over the past 1,000 years, Qingjiao rose to full saintly stature. In this great era, they now boast several quasi-saint-level champions and even 2 true saints. Only the absolute pinnacle, saints of legendary perfection like Yueling or Manshan, still eludes them. Yet everything the Qingjiao clan enjoys sprang from the forced assimilation of Yunjiao geniuses. Naturally, the Yunjiao clan seethed with indignation, but circumstances forced them to bow their heads. All hope seemed lost, until the day Mo Yunjiao was born. Whether in the Yunjiao or Qingjiao clans, true dragon blood rarely exceeds 10 to 20%. Mo Yunjiao, however, carried a dormant power that promised to upend the centuries-old imbalance and rekindle her people's aspiration for independence and honor. Even the legendary Qingjiao saint, the one who elevated the Qingjiao clan to sainthood 1,000 years ago, only managed to restore 30% of his true dragon blood, Gu Yiren said softly, his gaze fixed on Mo Yunjiao. She met his eyes, heart-pounding. He continued, "You naturally awoke with 30% of your true dragon blood at birth. Over the years, your cultivation has pushed that figure close to 50%. Barring any fatal mishap, your future is assured. You will reach at least the saint realm." Mo Yunjiao's composure cracked, panic flickering in her eyes. Gu Yiren didn't flinch. "Your clan has gone to great lengths to hide you," he acknowledged, "but secrets this big never stay hidden." He leaned back and recalled an incident from a few years earlier. A young Yunjiao clansman, sparring in the wilds, was captured by a Qingjiao powerhouse. Although the warrior spared his life, he probed the clansman's soul and discovered Mo Yunjiao's existence. Since then, the Qingjiao clan has pressed the Yunjiao clan for one demand: deliver Mo Yunjiao into their hands. Mo Yunjiao was the first to make a move, declaring that the Qingjiao clan's young master would have to outrank her on the wilderness ranking before she'd agree to marry him. If he couldn't, she swore she'd rather die than become part of the clan. The gambit worked, at least for a while, buying her precious time. But with each passing day, her anxiety grew. The young master might lack her natural talent, but the Qingjiao clan's deep roots and the cultivation resources 3 saints had set aside for him were steadily closing the gap on the wilderness ranking. Then came the news that Gu Yiren had broken into the rankings, knocking Mo Yunjiao out of the top 10. Stung by humiliation and rage, Mo Yunjiao challenged Yiren on the spot. Yet as she listened to Yiren's calm, unwavering words, her fiery courage gave way to hollow despair. At last, Mo Yunjiao let out a long, defeated sigh and bowed her head. "You already know everything, Sister Yiren. I have nothing more to hide. Thank you for caring about me all this time. I'll take my leave now." Mo Yunjiao bowed slightly. She knew that, having learned of her enmity with the Qingjiao clan, Gu Yiren would never risk angering them on her behalf. Even if the Gu family's influence surpassed the Qingjiao's, Gu Yiren had already made it clear they were strangers. Why would she intervene? "I was wrong to keep this from you," Mo Yunjiao added, lowering her head. "Please forgive me, sister." She turned to go, but a soft voice stopped her. "Sister Yunjiao, are you really leaving so soon? Don't you want to hear what I have to say?" Mo Yunjiao halted and glanced back at the younger woman. Gu Yiren's eyes glittered with curiosity and something else she couldn't immediately place. "Hear you out?" Mo Yunjiao echoed, raising an eyebrow. Gu Yiren smiled. "Yes, you see, the Qingjiao clan may be powerful, but they won't frighten me, and if they do give me trouble, my father can handle them. What I need is a reason, something thrilling enough to make this worthwhile." Mo Yunjiao frowned in surprise. "A reason? A treasure that excites you?" Gu Yiren nodded eagerly, leaning forward as if she were about to reveal a secret. Mo Yunjiao paused, intrigued despite herself. Mo Yunjiao had been under the Qingjiao clan's thumb for years. The first thought that flitted through her mind was the Yunjiao clan's legendary treasure. If she could win the favor of the powerful family behind Gu Yiren, everything might change. She bit her lip, cheeks flaming with shame and a quiet resentment she dared not voice. No matter how fiercely she resisted, was this forced submission truly her only option? And yet, she glanced at Gu Yiren, still a child, but astonishingly beautiful and gifted. If Gu Yiren's father would truly take her in, it could be the perfect alliance. Summoning all her resolve, Mo Yunjiao bowed her head and said softly, "All right, if your family can compel the Qingjiao clan to back down, I will accept whatever terms you demand." "Really? That's fantastic!" Gu Yiren's eyes shone with excitement. She had feared Mo Yunjiao might hesitate, and yet the answer came so easily. She clapped her hands together. "Then please, Sister Yunjiao, ask your clan elders to send us the map of the desolate tower, the one your Yunjiao clan has guarded for generations." Ye Cheng's tone was urgent. "We'd better move now. The desolate tower's opening is just around the corner." Sister Yiren leaned over the rough parchment laid out between them, her finger tracing its faded ink lines. "The desolate tower, so you actually have a map of it?" From the shadows, a young attendant stepped forward, clutching a bundle of scrolls. "Lady Yiren, is this everything you need?" Chapter 348. The desolate tower was a legacy left behind by the supreme immortals who first carved out the desolate realm. Within its sprawling expanse lie 3,000 pocket worlds, each preserving some fragment of ancient Taoist magic. Even after countless expeditions, numbering in the hundreds of thousands, vast swaths of the tower remain unexplored, and untold treasures slumber in its depths. Yet not all seekers wander blindly. Powerful sects such as the Yun clan, the Qing clan, and the Taiyan sect have long boasted saints capable of charting its mysteries. Over the ages, these masters mapped every nook and cranny they could reach, leaving behind invaluable dossiers of revelation and peril. These maps have become prized possessions, secular wealth for the top Taoist schools. In the crucible of a new era, possessing a map of the desolate tower can mean the difference between languishing in obscurity and soaring to the summit of cultivation. Armed with these charts, a sect's heirs can claim hidden treasures and secret techniques before any rival sets foot in those uncharted realms, and write their own legends among the tower's ancient stones. Mo Yunjiao froze as the truth dawned on her. Ye Cheng had spent the entire journey staring not at her, but at the Yunjiao clan's copy of the desolate tower map. A fresh wave of disappointment washed over her, followed by a sting of shame. Could it be that, in his eyes, a crumpled piece of parchment meant more than she did? Shaking off her embarrassment, Mo Yunjiao refocused on the task at hand. With careful precision, she slid her jade talisman across the table. Embedded within it was the Yunjiao clan's map, ready to be merged with the Taiyan sect's version that Ye Cheng now held. The two maps, when combined, would reveal dozens of hidden vaults and secret chambers rumored to safeguard holy treasures. Rumors even hinted at several chambers housing top-tier artifacts, waiting for the first daring souls to claim them. Now that we've secured both maps, Mo Yunjiao said, lifting her gaze to Ye Cheng, there's no need for my clan to send additional experts into the desolate tower alongside us, is there? Her tone was earnest, edged with both pride and anxiety. Ye Cheng met her eyes steadily. No, he replied, voice calm. Let the cultivators of the Yunjiao clan and the Taiyan sect pool their strengths. Between the two of us, we'll unravel every secret the tower holds. At his reassurance, Mo Yunjiao felt her earlier doubts begin to fade. United by a shared goal and guided by the combined wisdom of their maps, they were ready to venture into the heart of the desolate tower and claim its long-guarded mysteries. They're sending one team, and we're splitting into two. The fewer people in each group, the harder we are to detect, and the faster we can move. Between us, we have 2 copies of the map, so we'll cover more ground without stumbling over each other. Mo Yunjiao tapped a slender finger against the parchment, doubt clouding her eyes. But the desolate tower's restrictions still worry me. They were set by an immortal predecessor. Anyone above quasi-saint level can't even enter, and those below can't exceed Xuanzun power. If they stick to the rules, they shouldn't pose a threat. But what if some sect smuggles in forbidden weapons? That kind of power can temporarily shatter the Xuanzun ceiling. Gu Yiren laughed softly, confidence shining in her gaze. Don't worry about that. Even with a hidden arsenal, they'll only manage a brief surge before collapsing under the tower's suppression. And besides, didn't I bring you along for a reason? Mo Yunjiao's lips curved into a wary smile. You mean my innate magic? Exactly. Gu Yiren stood and brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. No matter how harsh the tower's runes, your cloud-piercing and air-break spells will cut right through. Their barriers can't hold you back. Reassured, Mo Yunjiao closed her eyes and drew a slow, steady breath. Between Gu Yiren's planning and her own extraordinary talents, the two of them were more than a match for anything the desolate tower could throw at them. With the blessing of those 2 enchantments, Mo Yunjiao could move through the wild tower at speeds rivaling even a heavenly venerable, or at worst, a saint venerable. That's precisely why Gu Yiren keeps her close, despite knowing how dependent Mo Yunjiao is on her. With Mo Yunjiao at her side, whether they're exploring the tower's depths or traveling beyond its gates, she's always got someone to cover her retreat. And if escape ever failed, well, she still has one last trump card. Mo Yunjiao blinked at her friend's calm assurance. Then she remembered the daddy Gu Yiren had mentioned, and the worry in her eyes faded. You're right, she said. Your father must have left you something extraordinary, an ultimate protection in a pinch. Gu Yiren hesitated. A hidden treasure from her father? That could indeed be her final ace. She forced herself to meet Mo Yunjiao's expectant gaze. Her father, Ye Cheng, had entrusted her with a single sword talisman, but she never intended to use something so priceless inside the wild tower. It would be far too great a waste, especially when the tower's strongest cultivators only reached the Saint Venerable realm. Her current strength, bolstered by the awakening of her innate divine flame, meant that even if she couldn't fell a Saint Venerable outright, she could still weather an assault from 1 or 2 and slip away unscathed. It's a pity Dao Xuan has gone off into another region of the secret realm, Gu Yiren muttered, her lips tightening. If Brother Xuan were here, we could have taken down a saint together. She drew in a steadying breath and squared her shoulders, resolve flickering in her eyes. On the Huangta map, which detailed every relic of the Yunjiao clan and the Taiyan sect, she'd already marked several Fireline divine medicines. As the living goddess of the Taiyan sect, Gu Yiren had managed to obtain 5 fire spirit seeds. With those fire relics, I'll fuse all 5 seeds at once, she vowed. Then Sister Taiyan will have no choice but to follow me. In truth, the innate Taiyan divine fire spirit recognized Gu Yiren's right to command, but it balked at her low cultivation level and refused to obey. Though Gu Yiren never complained aloud, the sting of rejection still weighed heavily on her heart. Ye Cheng's decision to venture into the desolate tower was driven in part by the promise of his innate Taiyan divine fire, an unpredictable power that had both tormented and empowered him. Days slipped by, and at last the legendary structure, unseen for hundreds of thousands of years, reared into being in all its dread majesty. Towering like a pitch-black monolith between heaven and earth, its obsidian walls erased entire mountain ranges and rivers for thousands of miles. Its oppressive aura felt even at the furthest edges of the realm. What struck Ye Cheng most was the tower's location. Not some remote wasteland, but the very center of the 36 states of Tianhuang, deep within the Tianhuang Mountains. News of its reappearance had spread like wildfire, drawing cultivators from every corner of the land. With the tower now fully anchored in the mountains, their numbers swelled to unprecedented levels, each newcomer hoping to claim whatever treasures or secrets lay within. Watching the ceaseless tide of adventurers, Ye Cheng felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. It was nearly time for him to make his move. During these days of gathering storm, he had wasted no opportunity to prepare. In addition to his daily training, Ye Cheng had quietly used his intelligence network to gather everything he could about the desolate tower, and he'd already put the final touches on a security plan for the Yunqi divine dynasty. Thanks to the vigilance of Luo Li, Chang Sun Ming, and the Yunqi Taoist, the dynasty would remain safe, even with every strong cultivator from the 36 states of Tianhuang gearing up for this event. With nothing left to hold him back, Ye Cheng mounted his cloud and flew straight into the heart of the Tianhuang Mountains. Before long, he stood at the foot of the desolate tower, a monolithic spire 10,000 feet high, its first floor ringed by 100 massive doors. Each portal bore the carved likeness of a primeval beast, its expression both terrifying and majestic. He joined the waiting throng in front of a randomly chosen gate. Once inside, everyone's power would be forcibly reduced to the Xuanzun level. But even so, relatively few at that rank dared to tackle the tower's deadly trials. Ye Cheng steeled himself, ready to face whatever lay beyond the door. Ye Cheng stepped into the vast waiting hall and surveyed the crowd. Cultivators of the highest order, Xuanzun, Tianzun, even Shengzun, appeared only infrequently here. Most assembled were Daozun or stronger. In the 36 states of Tianhuang, the titles of emperor were so numerous they'd grown common as cabbages in a spring field. Yet the moment Ye Cheng appeared, a ripple of astonishment ran through the hall. Dozens of powerful figures who had been seated immediately rose or paled, hastily offering him their places. Still, none dared show him the slightest disrespect. A few onlookers, those who didn't yet recognize him, grew visibly unsettled. "Who is this newcomer?" one murmured under his breath. "He looks barely 20, yet these heavenly emperors all defer to him without hesitation. What kind of local tyrant has he turned out to be?" Beside him, another cultivator snorted in impatience. "Fool, didn't you check before coming here? We're in the 36 states of Tianhuang. Everyone knows the name Ye Cheng. This swordsman in white is Ye Cheng, the uncrowned king of the 36 states of Tianhuang." Ye Cheng, such an odd name. Wait, the cultivator's words died on his lips as his expression shifted from curiosity to horror. Eyes widening, he stared at Ye Cheng in disbelief. "You're the one, the human killer god who single-handedly annihilated the entire Silver Armor clan with just one sword." Chapter 349. Is that the human godslayer from the 36 states of Tianhuang? At the sound of the name, every cultivator in the arena froze in shock. Even the emperors who hadn't recognized him yet turned pale. The Silver Armor clan was the undisputed overlord of the 36 states of Tianhuang, backed by the ancient Silver Snow Demon clan. Their power far surpassed that of most imperial families, even those ruled by seated emperors. And yet this one man, Ye Cheng, had single-handedly obliterated them. What made the feat more terrifying was the fact that Ye Cheng had fought his way into the very heart of Silver Armor territory. There, in the clan's ancestral domain, stood not only the remnant Saint Emperor ancestors and Heavenly Emperor masters of the Silver Armor clan, but also the clan's legendary protection formation, an artifact passed down through countless generations. Still, not one of these defenses could withstand Ye Cheng's assault. In the blink of an eye, the Silver Armor clan was snuffed out as though it had never existed. The assembled cultivators stared at Ye Cheng with a mixture of awe and dread. Whispers rippled through the crowd. This was no mere prodigy or war hero. He was, and perhaps always had been, a force of nature, a figure whispered about in terrified tones, the human godslayer of Tianhuang. And now, having reduced the mightiest house in the 36 states to ashes, he was poised to carve a bloody path through whatever dared stand before him. At the very least, he's a perfected saint emperor. He might even have reached true emperor level. A murmur rippled through the assembled cultivators as they stole glances at Ye Cheng, awe in their eyes. Nowhere was his feat more astonishing than among the human practitioners. In the vast wilderness, thousands of races jostled for power, and even the mightiest human sect had only just breached the saint realm, a far cry from wielding true dominance. Time and again, human forces faltered before alien adversaries, their strongholds razed, their people ground into pulp. The memory of the Silver Armor clan's reign still haunted them. When that ruthless power ruled the 36 states, human sects were systematically exterminated, their lands turned into hunting grounds, their people slaughtered as mere prey. And now, out of nowhere, Ye Cheng had struck. With a single breathtaking campaign, he annihilated the Silver Armor clan and seized control of the wilderness itself. A stunned silence settled over the crowd. For the first time in living memory, humans could glimpse a beacon of hope, and it stood embodied in the towering figure of Ye Cheng. Not only had the 36 states prospered, but the entire southern wilderness had also reaped the benefits. Even those once arrogant, cruel foreign races now felt intimidated. Yet where there is admiration, there is also resentment. When the Wild Tower descended, the entire wilderness was thrown into chaos, drawing formidable warriors from every race, not just humans. As these outsiders learned of Ye Cheng's deeds, they began to glare at him with frost in their eyes. Is that the man who annihilated the Silver Armor clan? What ruthless savagery! Humans are nothing but prey for blood feasts. In ancient times, they were nurtured by my 10,000 clan. Now they have the audacity to defy their former masters? This upstart must be eradicated if we're to preserve the prestige of my 10,000 clan. Which Taoist ally will strike first? Amid the crowd, alien lords exchanged whispered counsels, and a few malicious instigators lurked at the fringes, fanning the flames, eager to see Ye Cheng cut down. As soon as Ye Cheng's words echoed across the waiting hall, the assembled cultivators erupted into chaos. The human practitioners tensed at once, their faces draining of color at the thought that a powerful alien might seize this moment to strike. At the same time, several masters of the alien races who had quietly melded into the crowd revealed predatory gleams in their eyes. A handful of these formidable figures brimmed with murderous intent. They bore no allegiance to the Silver Armor clan, nor any personal grudge against Ye Cheng. The honor of the 10,000 clans held little weight for them. What truly tempted them was their connection to the Silver Snow Demon clan. If they could eliminate Ye Cheng now, they might curry favor with the demons later. The prospect was too enticing to ignore. Just as they readied themselves to pounce, Ye Cheng moved. He spoke no more words, but let a single finger twitch. In that instant, a sliver of blinding light sprang from his fingertip, a sword-like beam cutting through the air with a sharp whistle. Ah! A sudden scream ripped through the crowd. A powerful alien reeled as blood trickled from his brow, his mouth hanging open in shock and terror. He'd been lurking among the spectators, hoping to strike unawares, but before he could act, a dull thud sounded. The alien warrior crumpled to the ground. His soul, torn from his body, was annihilated in an instant, his life force snuffed out. All that remained was a wisp of shadow, dissipating into the air. A ripple of astonished voices spread through the onlookers. That was a Saint Emperor of the Shadow Clan. Seasoned alien fighters paled. The Shadow Clan, one of the ancient and formidable races alongside the Silver Armor Clan, was legendary for its mastery of magic, stealth, and assassination. A Saint Emperor from that line could cloak his presence so completely that even the Emperor himself would struggle to detect him. This veteran had counted on that reputation to move unseen, and yet he never dreamed that Ye Cheng's spiritual perception would be so unbelievably acute. Ye Cheng's sword whistled through the air and decapitated the man before he could finish a single sentence. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. His power, It eclipses the Saint Emperor realm, someone muttered in astonishment. Faces that had minutes ago been smug with confidence, now drained of color. The alien chieftains, who'd been jeering at Ye Cheng, fell eerily silent, their hearts pounding with awe. Even the ruthless mercenaries, eager moments earlier to slit his throat, exchanged tense glances. One growled, "Let's wait until we reach the desolate tower. That's where their immortal's supreme restriction lies. Once Ye Cheng steps inside, his abilities will be nullified. Then we'll finish him off." A shadowy assassin in the back covertly activated a hidden relic, intending to bind a divine mark onto Ye Cheng. With this tracking seal, his comrades could pursue Ye Cheng unhindered through the tower's labyrinth and bury him in one fell swoop. But Ye Cheng was already several strides ahead. With a faint whistle, swish, swish, he flicked his wrist. Multiple sword energy beams rippled outwards, slicing through the humid jungle air and homing in on the would-be ambushers. Panic erupted among the mercenaries. "Damn you, human insect! What do you?" Their cries cut off abruptly as the sword rays shredded armor and flesh in silent, efficient arcs. Bodies crumpled to the ground like strings of fallen puppets. Silence fell again, this time undercut by the sickening thud of collapsing bodies. Ye Cheng stood amidst a circle of motionless warriors, his sword still gleaming with residual light. Not a single attacker dared to challenge him further. In the gathering dusk, Ye Cheng's calm figure cast a long shadow. The promise of the desolate tower and the immortal's ancient trap within loomed ahead. Yet none of the deadly coalition now had the nerve to stand against him. For tonight, at least, Ye Cheng's legend had grown by one more breathtaking display of power. And in the hearts of his enemies, fear had taken root. Ye Cheng stood unmoving as the group of fierce aliens advanced, their sinister eyes narrowed with hostility. "We never attacked you," one snarled, "so why are you slaughtering innocent bystanders?" At his words, the aliens bristled. With a roar, they lunged forward, intercepting the gleaming sword Ligua. Tests ripple in the air. "Brothers in arms," another cried, rallying the rest. "This human insect has gone too far. Let us unite and take him down." Ye Cheng's gaze remained steady, his tone cool. "Rampant, you speak of killing innocents, yet your own murderous impulses drip poison from your words. You think I'm blind?" With that, the spiritual energy within his summoned sword lights flared white-hot. In an instant, their velocity doubled, each thin blade of light a perfect, unbreakable inch of power. "No!" the leader of the aliens screamed, as the razor-sharp beams cleaved through every barrier they'd hastily erected. Even though these warriors had reached the formidable Emperor realm, a level of cultivation that normally made them untouchable, they now stared at Ye Cheng in shock and regret. His might far exceeded their worst expectations. Every defense they erected shattered effortlessly before his sword lights, leaving them no choice but to taste the bitter sting of defeat. Ye Cheng's blade of light shredded the air and pierced straight through the narrow channel between each emperor's brow, striking their sea of consciousness dead on. With a wet crack and a spray of blood, the fierce warriors crumpled, limbs splayed, eyes staring blankly at the sky as they died instantly. A stunned silence fell over the gathered cultivators. No matter their clan, they all swallowed hard, their throats tight with awe and dread. Just moments ago, the Shadow Clan's brutes had seemed unstoppable. Now they'd been dispatched by Ye Cheng as if they were nothing more than insects. Even the foreign masters, who had been poised to seize their bodies and treasures, felt their ambitions drain away. None dared so much as glance at Ye Cheng again. But before the onlookers could fully recover from their shock, something extraordinary happened among the fallen. One of the emperors, his back still sprouting ethereal wings, clutched at a crimson pouch hanging at his side. With a burst of red light, the pouch flew open, its contents shifting and solidifying into an arcane talisman. From that glowing glyph, a humanoid silhouette flickered into being, a radiant projection that hovered above the corpse, its eyes fixed on Ye Cheng. As Ye Cheng's spirit projection materialized, every monk in the waiting hall froze, their breaths catching in unison. The aura radiating from his image was so overwhelmingly powerful that it far outshone the fierce energy of the alien warriors they had just faced. Even more startling, behind Ye Cheng's spectral form unfolded a pair of wings, so vividly crimson they seemed dipped in fresh blood. In all the Wilderlands, only one tribe bore feathers of that hue. "It can only be one clan," murmured an elder, voice trembling with awe. "The ancient saint tribe's lineage, a quasi-saint bloodline boasting a saint-level powerhouse. He's a master of the Blood Sparrow tribe." A ripple of astonished whispers swept the hall as the monks exchanged incredulous glances. None had expected such a revelation, and none could deny that the projection before them heralded the arrival of truly formidable strength. Chapter 350. The Blood Sparrow clan is one of the great ancient holy sects, its Taoist traditions unmatched and overseen by a quasi-saint. Scores of formidable cultivators call it home, each effectively invincible against adversaries of the same level, so even a mere projection of one of their masters was enough to unsettle everyone present. Moments after Ye Cheng had slain the alien invader, a wavering image materialized beside the corpse. Though the projection's power was deliberately held in check, it wasn't displaying its full strength. The very aura it exuded made the fallen alien's residual energy seem trivial by comparison. Human cultivators around them exchanged uneasy glances, both in awe of the Blood Sparrow clansman's might and concern for Ye Cheng's safety. Before the spectral figure could fully solidify, a commanding voice rang out. The Blood Sparrow Emperor, brow knit with impatience, addressed someone off to the side. "Our young master has arrived. Baiyuan, step forward and greet him properly." At those words, Baiyuan hesitated only a moment before bowing respectfully, his expression a mix of humility and awe at the power now manifesting in their midst. Blood Sparrow Emperor stepped over the fallen form of Emperor Baiyuan, whose lifeless eyes stared up at him. His brow tightened as he crouched down for a closer look. "Interesting," he murmured. He straightened, swept his gaze over the assembly, then fixed his eyes on Ye Cheng. "So you're the one who eliminated a vassal of my Blood Sparrow tribe?" Unfazed, Ye Cheng met the Emperor's stare with calm, steady eyes. His voice was even. "I did what had to be done." At that admission, several of the other masters, those who had long feared Ye Cheng's prowess, stifled eager smiles. Had they been braver, they might have offered to help the Blood Sparrow Emperor dispose of this dangerous upstart, thus thinning the ranks of competitors in the Wild Tower trials. But to their surprise, the Blood Sparrow Emperor showed no anger. Instead, he studied Ye Cheng for a long moment, as if weighing him, before speaking again in an unexpectedly measured tone. "In that case, you'll take Baiyuan's place," the Blood Sparrow clan Emperor declared, "and join my squad. You are to serve on my young master's battle slave team in the desolate tower conflict." He lifted his hand, drawing a sphere of crimson light from the air. Two small, blood-red wings unfurled in the glowing mist, then solidified into a token engraved with matching wing motifs. With a flick of his wrist, he sent it skidding across the stone floor to Ye Cheng's feet. "Pick it up," he commanded. "Then come with me to meet the young master." His voice was calm and unmistakable, an order beyond question. Around them, the gathered foreign cultivators exchanged gleeful looks. They had feared the Blood Sparrow clan Emperor would spare Ye Cheng, but now they saw his fate was far bleaker than they'd imagined. The desolate tower was anything but a safe haven. Each small world within it brimmed with hidden perils. In past generations, even peerless geniuses and Saint Dao masters had met their end inside its walls. In this situation, what real advantage could the war-slave detachment, assembled by the Blood Sparrow clan's young master, possibly have? They were nothing more than cannon fodder. Their lives merely blazed past so the young master could move unhindered. And now that Ye Cheng had been seized, their fate would doubtless be far worse than death. "I fear His Highness Ye Cheng may not survive this ordeal," the Blood Sparrow clan Emperor declared grimly. A handful of alien delegates smirked at the unfolding disaster. But among the human cultivators gathered there, hearts clenched and eyes filled with grief and anger as they listened. "You're going too far," one of them shouted. "Exactly," cried another. "The White Kite Emperor tried to kill His Highness at the outset, was ready to murder him outright. Ye Cheng only defended himself. Why are you dragging him off like a criminal?" "Even if you come from the ancient saints, you should show some sense of justice." A young human warrior, still fresh from his breakthrough, his spirit ablaze with righteous fury, could not hold his tongue. He jumped to his feet, planting himself before the Blood Sparrow clan's retinue. "Hold on," he demanded, voice ringing out clear and strong. "This isn't right." But before he could finish, the Blood Sparrow clan's guards moved to silence him, and the assembled crowd held its breath, awaiting what would happen next. Reason? The Emperor of the Blood Sparrow clan sneered, contempt flashing in his eyes as he leveled his gaze on Ye Cheng. With a single motion of his hand, he unleashed a surge of spiritual force that pinned the young man to the ground. "The reason is simple," Ye Cheng replied coolly, struggling against the invisible pressure. "I'm here. That's enough. If you still have objections, take them to hell." A cruel smile curved the Emperor's lips. He gathered his power in one palm, and crimson light coalesced into a massive wing of red energy. It cleaved the air, painting a scarlet arc toward the trembling woman at the edge of the courtyard. "It ends here," he declared. A collective gasp rose from the assembled cultivators. Some turned away, unable to watch what was coming. The woman's face went white with fear. She'd never imagined a Blood Sparrow clan powerhouse could be so merciless. As she closed her eyes and braced for the end, a resounding crack split the air. Instinctively, she opened her eyes and froze. In that instant, hope surged where there had been none. Ye Cheng didn't hesitate. Before anyone realized what was happening, he'd moved to shield the young man standing behind him. With a calm, almost casual motion, he pressed his thumb and forefinger together as though he were picking up a pair of chopsticks and gripped the oncoming red light wing. Crack! The blade of crimson energy shattered instantly in his hand, dissolving into innumerable motes of spiritual light that vanished into the air as if they'd never existed. A stunned hush fell over the courtyard. Even the Blood Sparrow clan's emperor, whose attacks could level a lesser sovereign, stood frozen, disbelief etched on his face. "What? He blocked it?" someone whispered. The emperor's surprise quickly shifted to something darker, interest, laced with challenge. He regarded Ye Cheng with narrowed eyes. "Your strength is far greater than I anticipated. No wonder you defeated Bai Yuan. I'll offer you one more chance. Come with me to the desolate tower and fight for the young master. Prove your worth and atone for your crimes, or perish here." He stepped forward, releasing the full force of his projection's aura. In an instant, the assembled crowd felt the air grow heavy with tension. The gauntlet had been thrown. "Emperor! The late Emperor!" A stunned murmur rippled through the gathered cultivators. Before them hovered a projection shimmering with the exact aura of the late Emperor they all revered. Yet if this was merely an illusion, where and how did the true Emperor remain, fully charged with his unparalleled might? How could anyone possibly resist this? Their voices trembled with dread. The Blood Sparrow clan had long stood as an ancient, hallowed lineage. Any of their masters could rival an emperor in person. And although this was only a projection, it had inherited every skill, every spell of the original. In raw combat power, few perfected emperors in the world could hope to stand against it. "Human brat," the emperor of the Blood Sparrow clan thundered, stepping forward. Behind him, crimson wings fanned out, bleeding a fierce, bloody light. His voice dripped with arrogant confidence as he fixed his gaze on Ye Cheng, eyes gleaming like a predator sizing up its prey. "Tell me your answer." Dozens of hostile gazes bore into Ye Cheng, but he remained perfectly calm, every nerve ready for the storm to come. "Answer," Ye Cheng called out, his tone flat. He lifted his gaze to the distant figure of the Blood Spar. Ro clan's emperor made no further comment and began to walk forward as if he were merely wandering through a garden. In an instant, time seemed to stretch. When the onlookers' senses returned, they realized Ye Cheng was already balanced atop the emperor's head. With no visible surge of spiritual energy, he raised a single palm and pressed it down. Crack! The towering projection of the Blood Sparrow clan emperor, so full of haughty confidence only moments before, split apart under that light touch. In less than a breath, it dissolved into nothingness, scattering like mist on the wind. A hush fell over the crowd. Then Ye Cheng's calm voice echoed across the battlefield. "That was only an illusion. Even if the real Blood Sparrow clan emperor had shown up in person, he wouldn't dare spout such nonsense in front of me." Chapter 351. The battlefield fell deathly silent. Warriors and spectators alike stood frozen, their eyes wide in disbelief. Before them lay the shattered projection of a perfect emperor, born of the ancient and revered Bloodsparrow clan, obliterated by a single palm strike. None could fathom such power in one so young. Shock rippled through the ranks, leaving hearts pounding and voices caught in throats. Nearby, Tang Yan, once the celebrated female prodigy, struggled to steady her breath. Her chest rose and fell violently as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Only when Ye Cheng withdrew his hand and stepped back toward the waiting area did her senses begin to return. Grateful relief shone in her eyes as she hurried to his side. "Your Highness Ye Cheng, thank you for saving me." Tang Yan's voice trembled with emotion. Ye Cheng offered her a gentle smile and waved her thanks aside. "There's no need for gratitude. It wasn't much. Besides, you spoke up for me when it mattered." At his calm reassurance, Tang Yan felt her heart flutter. She bit her lower lip, her cheeks warming. Though her breath still fluttered, in that moment of shared understanding, she dared to feel something more than mere relief. Perhaps even the first stirrings of affection. Tang Yan's heart soared. Her idol had actually spoken to her so gently and intimately. She couldn't have chosen a better moment to act. Around her, dozens of other gifted young women shot poison-eyed glares her way, barely holding back their envy. At the same time, a handful of clear-headed masters in the crowd began sending discreet messages to Ye Cheng. "Your Highness," one warned, "your divine power may be unrivaled, but the Bloodsparrow clan is an ancient holy tribe. You must prepare yourself and stay vigilant." One by one, the elders urged him to fall back to a safer distance, find a secluded spot to regroup, and only approach the desolate tower once its gates opened fully. The ancient tribes, after all, were notorious for their arrogance and ferocity. Most regarded mere humans as nothing more than prey. The Bloodsparrows were no exception. Now that Ye Cheng had destroyed the projection of one of their champions, the clan's true warriors would not rest until they'd exacted revenge. Even his immense strength could be overwhelmed if he was forced to fight them all at once. Ye Cheng's true age was an open secret. No matter how you looked at him, he hardly seemed like someone who'd been cultivating for over a century. And when the other Bloodsparrow tribe elites finally showed up, even the corporeal echo of their strongest warrior would likely dwarf him in power. "Relax, everyone," Ye Cheng said with an easy grin. "If the Bloodsparrow tribe dares to come, I'll deal with them." He inclined his head to acknowledge their concern, but made no move to depart. Watching him stand his ground, the elder masters exchanged wary glances. He was talented, yes, but still too young, too brash to face those bloodthirsty invaders alone. In the crowd's darker corners, the alien dignitaries stifled smiles. They leaned into one another, voices low and laced with amusement. "Just wait for the Bloodsparrow leaders to arrive," one whispered. "Then we'll see how this human upstart fares." "Does he really believe he can oppose them? Does he think he can change the world all by himself?" Another scoffed. "We must teach him a lesson and make an example of these humans." The alien lords of the Bloodsparrow clan shared a single, fierce thought. Inwardly, they all pictured the moment their masters would lay waste to Ye Cheng, but on the surface, their faces were masks of impassivity, betraying nothing. Despite that, their hearts raced with excitement as they waited. Suddenly, the air around the desolate tower stirred. A deep, resonant chime reverberated from within its black stone walls. Ding! 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 The sound rolled out, echoing across the barren landscape. All around, the spiritual energies of distant mountains and rivers swept toward the tower. Brilliant columns of light coal essayed overhead like celestial dragons, then crashed down against the tower's sealed doors. With each impact, the ancient portals inched open, revealing a deep, timeless presence swirling within. A vast, primeval aura poured out, brushing over the gathered alien lords. But no sooner had the doors parted than they began to swing shut again, as if the tower itself decided this was enough. The sudden close caught everyone off guard. What did this strange manifestation mean? And, more importantly, what fate awaited Ye Cheng behind those doors? Only by letting ancient energy and modern spiritual chi counterbalance one another did the gates opening slow, and those with keen spiritual senses felt it immediately. This window of opportunity would not stay open for long. Fortunately, the cultivators of the desolate realm had anticipated this before arriving. so none were caught unawares. Rather than worry over the door's fleeting lifespan, they set their sights on the myriad teleportation vortexes glittering just beyond, each one a star-like portal leading to a separate pocket world within the tower, each world rumored to hold untold treasures. The desolate tower is open. I'm going first. What are you waiting for, fellow Taoists? Your chance is right here. Hurry, hurry. The gate won't stay open forever. Don't let it slip away. Cheers and shouts rose in a crescendo. Divine lights flared across the field as cultivators raced toward the nearest vortex, each determined to seize their destiny before the door to the desolate tower slammed shut once more. At that very moment, something strange happened. A sharp crack split the air near the waiting area where Ye Cheng stood. In an instant, a jagged rift tore open the void, and a man stepped through. He was middle-aged, with a human body but the fierce head of a bird. His hands ended in razor-sharp talons, his eyes glowed blood-red with murderous intent, and behind him a pair of scarlet wings stretched wide. The crushing aura of a perfect emperor rolled outward, enveloping every cultivator in the vicinity. There could be no mistake. This was the emperor of the Blood Sparrow clan. Trying to escape? He snarled, his voice echoing like thunder. First, you'll have to trample over Ye Cheng's corpse. Panic swept through the waiting cultivators just as the gates of the desolate tower groaned open. Dozens turned and bolted, sprinting toward the main entrance with all their might. But the Blood Sparrow Emperor let out a chilling whistle. With a flourish of his sleeve, a torrent of crimson light lashed out like a blood-red waterfall, cutting off their path and any hope of freedom. A distant scream split the air. Run! Save yourselves. I'm not human. Why kill me too, Elder? But nothing could stop the onslaught of a perfect-level emperor. Even among the ancient saints, such power was almost mythic, a tidal wave of destruction that turned cultivators into ash the moment he passed. It wasn't merely an attack, it was wholesale slaughter, remorseless and absolute. With each victim's last breath, the Blood Sparrow clan emperor inhaled their life essence, folding it into his own being, until every stolen drop of energy pulsed through him. One dying warrior spat blood and cried out, Blood Sparrow clan, we share the same ancient lineage. How can you be so merciless? I curse you, eternally, another gasped, soul flickering at the edge of oblivion. They clung to those final remnants of spirit, hoping to flee with whatever shreds of life they could salvage. But the Emperor's hunger was insatiable. Bodies and souls alike were drawn into the maw of his blood-red wings, swallowed whole. At last, his voice, cold as falling ice, echoed over the carnage. If you seek someone to blame, curse the human who shattered my projection, Ye Cheng. Had he not acted so rashly, I would never have been drawn into this realm. Wouldn't you have saved your own lives? The Blood Sparrow Emperor smacked his beak with a drunkard's delight, then spoke each word with deliberate slowness. His gaze slid over to Ye Cheng, cool and calculating. But behind that calm facade flickered the slightest trace of fear. Just moments ago, the Emperor had swept through the cultivators, slaughtering them and drinking in their blood and energy. Yet exactly then, Ye Cheng had unleashed his counterattack, swift, brutal, unstoppable as a tidal wave. In the blink of an eye, every human caught in the Emperor's crimson aura was cut free by Ye Cheng's brilliant sword light and sent tumbling back to safety. The Blood Sparrow hesitated, a flash of surprise in his eyes. Then he recovered his composure and continued, voice like ice. People of the human realm, this is your final chance to surrender to my young master. Refuse, and you will face a fate more terrifying than death itself. He raised a taloned hand and flexed his claws. Before me stand dozens of living blood beasts, so-called heavenly prodigies plucked from among your kind. Yield now, or watch them endure horrors you wouldn't dare imagine. They're sustained by specially designated handlers every single day, only for me to harvest their life essence once a month. You wouldn't want a fate like theirs. Blood beasts? Ye Cheng's brow furrowed as he eyed the crimson-feathered bird. A flicker of interest crossed his eyes. Is every member of your Blood Sparrow clan like this? The Blood Sparrow Emperor's plumage ruffled at Ye Cheng's chill tone. He laughed, the sound crackling through the air. Ha! How dare the dinner of humankind grow angry before my sacred clan? His voice dripped with contempt. Do you think I'm exaggerating when I say every blood sparrow is fed and caged for the sole purpose of your monthly feast? And what if I do? Ye Cheng's lips curved into a faint, unsettling smile. Around him, the gathered cultivators grew uneasy. There was nothing warm in that grin, only a cold, cutting edge. Without another word, he stepped forward. In an instant, he was atop the blood sparrow. The great bird had never imagined Ye Cheng's speed could be so absurd. Its mocking smile froze as it spread its blood-red wings in a desperate bid to escape, but Ye Cheng was already there, close enough to see the terror in its eyes. At that very moment, the spiritual power in his dantian surged. The cultivator intended to unleash the forbidden weapon he'd smuggled in, using it to crush Ye Cheng once they reached the abandoned tower. Ye Cheng's strength had exceeded all expectations, and he dared not hold back. But before the weapon could be released, puff! Ye Cheng moved with inhuman speed. He closed the distance in the blink of an eye, lifted his hand, and pressed a single fingertip into the void. In an instant, his essence struck the Blood Sparrow Emperor's sea of consciousness and shattered it completely. Plop! High above the clouds, the Emperor's eyes went blank as his life was snuffed out. His body twitched once, then collapsed to the ground with a heavy, echoing thud. A stunned silence fell over the assembled cultivators, clansmen and spectators alike. Yet even more chilling than the Emperor's swift end were the words Ye Cheng spoke next, his voice calm and unwavering. "This is the first." Without another moment's hesitation, Ye Cheng mounted his cloud and shot toward the entrance of the desolate tower. The onlooking cultivators were left behind in stunned silence, exchanging bewildered glances as though trapped in a dream. "Wait, what does this mean?" one of them finally whispered. "Is Lord Ye Cheng really planning to wipe out the entire Blood Sparrow clan?" Another murmured, shock etched on every face. Chapter 352. The Blood Sparrow clan, one of the ancient primordial saint lineages, has held its ground in the wilderness for countless generations, each producing masters who transcend the Saint Tao. As this great age dawns, the clan's foundations and spirit have only grown more formidable. Rumor even has it that the clan's venerable ancestor is on the verge of breaking into the Saint realm. Should he succeed, the Blood Sparrow clan would vault into the ranks of super sects, second only to the Moon Spirit and Barbarian God sects, and stand shoulder to shoulder with the Green Dragon clan and the Tianyuan Holy Dynasty, looking down on all other powers of the wilds. So why, then, has His Highness Ye Cheng, formerly known as Xianxia, taken such a deadly interest in the Blood Sparrow clan? Some whispered uneasily that perhaps they were overthinking the matter. Maybe Ye Cheng's target was only the handful of Blood Sparrow masters who had ventured into the Wild Tower. But in the tense hush that followed, no one dared voice that hope aloud. For a power like the Blood Sparrow clan, their Wild Tower squad was nothing to scoff at. They'd assembled quasi-saints wielding forbidden weapons, fighters capable of suppressing entire realms to shield their young master. And among their ranks were Emperor Realm veterans who had, not long ago, tasted defeat at Ye Cheng's hands. If Ye Cheng truly meant to obliterate this team, the news would detonate across the Wild Realm, shaking every stronghold to its foundations. Even the alien warriors, once brash in their dismissals, now exchanged uneasy glances. If Ye Cheng chose to strike, he might well dismantle the Blood Sparrow clan's entire expedition to the Wild Tower. "When did humanity in the Wild Realm spawn such a monster?" someone whispered. While the cultivators outside reeled in shock, another chamber brimmed with the Blood Sparrow clan's own warriors. Massive figures paced the room, their bloodlines roaring, murderous intent crackling off them like electricity. Each man's gaze was as cold and sharp as a drawn blade, ready for whatever trials awaited in the Wild Tower. There are dozens of Emperor-rank cultivators arrayed here, either sworn vassals of the Blood Sparrow clan or people whose souls have been forcibly branded with the clan's mark. Aside from the Blood Sparrow young master and a handful of younger elites, every one of them easily exceeds the Emperor tier. Flanking the young master stand two scarlet-robed elders, their eyes hooded and their breaths held in perfect restraint. At first glance, they look like feeble old mortals, but a closer reading of their auras reveals a divine power so vast it resembles the abyssal depths, far surpassing even the mightiest emperor. There is no doubt these are transcendent beings who have awakened the sacred path, the true top-tier quasi-saints of the northern wilderness. Such is the spirit of the ancient Blood Sparrow clan, an imperial saint lineage whose aura can swallow the heavens. They have dispatched these two quasi-saints solely to guard their young master. With that lineup, who besides the Green Dragon clan could possibly stand against them once they enter the Wild Tower? Nearby, a young cultivator caught sight of the Blood Sparrow clan's entourage and couldn't help whispering in awe. Who said there isn't anyone? I don't even know where that idiot came from, but he had the gall to offend the Blood Sparrow clan. Another murmured with a wicked grin, "No rush to scatter just yet. The Blood Sparrow clan emperor, Taoist blood origin, the one whose projection was beheaded, has ridden off to take revenge. He won't be long. Mark my words, he'll return bearing that fool's head. Let's stay and watch who's foolish enough to tempt fate." A handful of onlookers who thrived on scandal lingered nearby, curiosity shining in their eyes. Earlier, one of the Blood Sparrow clan's vassals had been beheaded, and even the projection tethered to him was destroyed, sending ripples of shock through every cultivator waiting in this sector. It had been years since anyone dared to cross the Blood Sparrow clan in the wild territory. Who wouldn't be intrigued? Who wouldn't be astonished? And as they leaned in, hungry for the next twist of events, the tension in the air only grew. Ye Cheng stood in the grand hall of the Blood Sparrow clan, his hand resting on a slender Zen staff carved from white jade. 24 tiny skulls ringed its length, each set with glimmering red runes. In an instant, the phantom flame in one skull's eye pit sputtered and went out. No one needed to interpret the omen. Every warrior present stiffened. Even the two quasi-saints, who normally kept their gazes fixed on the ground, glanced up with cold, hard eyes. "Shuiyuan is dead," Ye Cheng announced, his voice low and icy. He straightened abruptly, tightening his grip on the staff. Its jade surface gleamed beneath the torches. "Who slew him?" The messenger before him bowed deeply. "My lord," as Shuiyuan fell, he managed to whisper the name of his killer, the new overlord of the 36 states of Tianhuang. He vowed to capture the assassin and deliver him to you as a war slave. Ye Cheng's expression darkened. The overlord of the 36 states of Tianhuang, he met each warrior's gaze in turn. "Prepare our swiftest scouts. I want every border post sealed. If this overlord dares threaten my clan, he will learn what it means to cross the Blood Sparrows. An overlord of such a tiny domain." The young master of the Blood Sparrow tribe sneered. "Issue the order. Have our marksmen pick him off." "Master, wait!" Two Saint Heirs at his side interrupted, bowing slightly. "Right now, the Desolate Tower is our true target." They spoke with urgency. The Desolate Tower was famed as one of the 3 supreme legacies of the Desolate Realm, its depths hiding untold divine treasures. Compared to the riches and power waiting inside, the death of Emperor Shuiyuan was but a trivial matter. "To the Saint clan, he's no more than an ant," one heir continued. "We can eliminate him once we've secured our spoils. The tower's gateway will only remain open for a short time. We must seize this chance at once." The young master's expression flickered, his impatience evident. Yet he recognized the measure of their argument. After a tense moment, he gave a curt nod. "Very well. We move on the tower first, deal with the rest later." With that, the Blood Sparrow forces fell silent, shifting their focus from assassination to exploration of the legendary Desolate Tower. Ye Cheng paused for a moment, then nodded, his stubborn streak finally broken. Still, he stamped his authority with a sharp order. "Send messengers in all directions. Issue a bounty through the Saint clan. The newly promoted King of Tianhuang is to be killed on sight." He leaned forward, voice colder than before. "He'll enter the Desolate Tower, so make that known too. Any cultivator of any clan who ventures in and brings me his severed head, once his identity is verified, will receive a quasi-saint pill. If someone actually captures him alive, they'll earn themselves a quasi-saint weapon." The instant those words rang out, every cultivator in the courtyard snapped to attention, eyes blazing with new fervor. Until now, they had stood in awed silence, still reeling from the strength of the mysterious overlord who had so recently stormed the 36 states of Tianhuang, and before whom even the notorious Blood Sparrow clan had dared to bow. But with this decree, the timid among them dared to hope. In hushed tones, they regretted ever doubting Ye Cheng's resolve, and in secret lit candles in prayer, for they were certain the Overlord's reign was destined to end in blood. Those with true power, or those who merely believed themselves powerful, had one goal in mind: find Ye Cheng in the desolate tower, hunt him down, and if possible, capture him alive to claim the Bloodbird clan's hefty reward. High in the Tianhuang Mountains, the moment the desolate tower's gates swung open, wind and thunder roared, as though warning would-be challengers to stay away. Yet cultivators surged in from every direction, racing toward the tower's gaping maw. On the horizon, spirit boats, some carrying lone wanderers, others laden with disciples handpicked by the great sects, sped through the clouds. Each vessel brimmed with practitioners who had drilled endlessly for this precise moment. One boat, in particular, drew every eye. 2 banners snapped in the gale. On one, a globe of divine flame, its embers dancing like living sparks. On the other, a shimmering dragon spirit coiled as if poised to strike. At the sight, even the hardened veterans lining the mountain passes fell silent, awe flooding their expressions. "Those are the emblems of Taiyan sect and the Yunjiao clan," someone breathed. "They've actually formed an alliance?" A ripple of excitement swept the gathering. To see 2 of the realm's most formidable powers join forces, even temporarily, meant only one thing. They expected a trial beyond anything yet witnessed in the desolate tower. And somewhere inside, Ye Cheng was waiting. As the spiritual boat emerged from the morning mist, a ripple of excitement ran through the gathered cultivators on the shore. "Is that the venerable quasi-saint master of the Taiyan sect aboard this vessel? Who else would command such honor?" one disciple murmured in awe. Another voice, trembling with disbelief, added, "And is that really the 7th uncle of the Yunjiao clan? The legendary powerhouse who reached the quasi-saint stage 5,000 years ago? He's come out of seclusion just to escort this boat?" Several keen-eyed cultivators locked eyes on the figure standing with unwavering composure at the bow. Shock and reverence mingled in their whispers as they processed the astonishing sight. Chapter 353. As they stepped onto the deck, every gaze was drawn to a lone figure, a young woman flanked by a dozen towering cultivators, each one standing like a satellite orbiting a brilliant star. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "That must be Mo Yunjiao," someone said in awe. "The eldest daughter of the Yunjiao clan, her bloodline has finally returned to its ancestral home." News of Mo Yunjiao's exploits was legendary. Once ranked among the Wild List's top 10 prodigies, she remained a force to be reckoned with even after Gu Yiren's rise. Hardly anyone dared challenge her. But didn't Miss Gu Yiren capture Mo Yunjiao and turn her into a personal mount? How could she possibly be back here, free and honored? Cultivators exchanged bewildered glances, the old rumors tugging at their memories. Before they could reconcile the contradiction, a second figure emerged, this time escorted by the elite guards of the Taiyan sect. A little girl, no more than 10 years old, her eyes bright as an elf's, walked forward with absolute confidence. The spectators gasped again. This tiny child, full of playful liveliness, seemed utterly out of place on such a majestic stage. Their earlier assumptions vanished in an instant, replaced by a fresh, more pressing question. Who was this mysterious child, and what role did she play in the unfolding drama? She showed no hint of nerves, only pure excitement, standing before the deserted tower as if she were about to embark on a grand picnic rather than face a trial of life and death. Even the venerable elder of the Taiyan sect had treated her with the utmost caution, repeatedly warning fellow disciples to keep her name and mission strictly confidential. Yet the brilliant red palace skirt she wore plainly marked her as one of the sect's divine inheritors. A ripple of astonishment ran through the gathered cultivators. "Is that the Taiyan divine maiden?" someone whispered. "The new incarnation of our sect's goddess is less than 10 years old? And they actually plan to send her into the deserted tower to train? Do they intend to sacrifice her?" Many in the crowd were near panic. She was barely a child. After all, how could she possibly have mastered even the most basic formations? Now she was marching straight into one of the most perilous places in all the cultivation world. Who could stay calm at such a sight? Yet as murmurs of disbelief swelled, her bright eyes gleamed with anticipation rather than fear. Unperturbed by the anxious gasps around her, she bowed respectfully to the elders, her small frame radiating an unshakable confidence that would soon leave the entire sect, and perhaps the wider cultivation world, reeling. Once the child stepped out of the cabin, he wasted no time. He strode straight up to Mo Yunjiao and the Yunjiao clan masters following her, barking orders to have every treasure, every forbidden weapon, and every other item laid out, everything they might need to enter the Wild Tower. Dressed in the flowing robes of the Taiyan sect's goddess, he could easily have passed for the current head of the Yunjiao clan. Yet even without the ceremonial garb, no one present would have doubted his authority. Mo Yunjiao and her clan masters executed his commands to the letter, without a single question or hesitation, leaving the assembled cultivators utterly speechless. "Who is this child?" someone finally whispered. Another leaned closer. "Wait, could that be Ye Cheng, the one who defeated Mo Yunjiao?" "You've got to be kidding," scoffed a third. "No joke," the first cultivator replied. "He can't be more than 10 years old, and yet he overpowered the head of the Yunjiao clan, and even 2 masters from the wilderness list. They say he's destined to stand alongside the moon spirit goddess, or maybe even the barbarian god's young lord. Do you really think that's possible?" The cultivator who'd spoken immediately drew a chorus of protests. Even he knew, the moment the words left his lips, just how far-fetched his guess sounded. He offered a wry, embarrassed smile and waved his hands, silently begging his peers to ignore him. A short distance away, aboard the spirit boat, Ye Cheng paid no attention to the uproar. Impatience burned in his chest. He was desperate to reach the wilderness tower. No amount of cautions from the high-ranking officials of the Yunjiao clan and the Taiyan sect could sway him. "Uncle," he said firmly to the Yunjiao elder, "there's no need to dissuade us. We don't require mountains of supplies or a dozen escorts. It'll be just the 2 of us." He pressed his point further. "Those formations you've prepared aren't for our benefit, Sectmaster, but for yours. Simply station them outside the desolate tower ahead of time. Sister Yunjiao and I will handle everything inside. We'll cut down anyone who stands in our way and claim all the treasures waiting within. As soon as we leave the desolate tower, we can be sure that enemies will be trailing us, hungry for our treasures. Keep your guard up and hold a large protective formation outside at all times. And don't haul every forbidden weapon in the armory," Guyirin continued, her tone measured. "Just take 3 to 5 each. Stow the rest away. Once we emerge, we'll need them to fend off anyone who tries to steal our haul." Guyirin's orders set the senior leaders of the 2 sects into motion. Nearly all their resources were being funneled to support her and Mo Yunjiao. Only a fraction was allocated for Ye Cheng and the others' survival inside the tower. In Guyirin's confident estimation, once she stepped into the Wild Tower, she would break through every seal left by the ancient immortals. With Mo Yunjiao's help in gathering the treasures, she claimed there was no need for any further trump cards. Those bold words, coming from Guyirin's sweet, childlike face, made the 2 sect leaders exchange uneasy glances. They'd assumed the little girl hadn't grasped the true danger lurking inside the Wild Tower. Every word of caution they offered was cut off by Guyirin's calm but determined reply. "I can even defeat Sister Yunjiao," she declared. "Do you really think I'm just some empty-talking child?" Her tone brooked no argument. Silence fell over the courtyard as the elders swallowed their protests. Even Mo Yunjiao, famed for her icy grace, felt her composure slip at the challenge. If she couldn't best Guyirin in combat, she admitted, she'd almost relish giving the girl a proper lesson afterward, if only the rules allowed it. Then, as though timed to heighten the tension, a deep, resonant boom rolled out from the distant Wild Tower. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of the Taoist bell echoed across heaven and earth, jolting every cultivator back to full alertness. The tower's closing signal had begun. The ancient aura surging from the tower had already consumed most of the heaven and earth spiritual energy drawn in when it first opened, speeding up its impending closure. "All right, there's no time to lose. Let's move out," Ye Cheng called to his sect master. "Uncle from the Yunjiao clan, be ready to receive us." Without another word, Ye Cheng sprang to his feet. Mo Yunjiao at his side did the same, each of them bracing for departure. But before they could take a step, the sky above exploded in a shower of lights. thousands of brilliant streaks pouring down like falling stars. The lights veered toward every cluster of cultivators below, concentrating wherever groups gathered. Naturally, many of those beams swept toward Ye Cheng's position. Instinctively, he snatched one of the luminous threads from midair. As he unfurled it, the gleaming ribbon resolved into the faint outline of a small token, etched with a pair of blood-red wings and radiating a grim, murderous aura. "What is this?" Ye Cheng whispered, heart pounding as a chill ran down his spine. Beside her, Mo Yunjiao and the cultivators aboard the nearby spirit boats all received the streaks of light and caught sight of the medallion suspended within. Their eyes went wide. "That's the Saint Clan's wanted warrant," one of them gasped. "Look at those blood-red wings. It's a Blood Sparrow clan decree." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Who could have angered the Blood Sparrow clan so badly that even the Saint Clan has issued a warrant? A hush fell over the assembled cultivators. The Blood Sparrow clan was one of the oldest and most revered holy lineages in the wilds, its power and reach practically unrivaled. Few beings in all the wilderness dared to defy them. Fewer still provoked them to the point of a formal manhunt. Such a feat was so rare it might only occur once in generations or even centuries. And yet here they were, staring at the proof of that very transgression. "Look," someone said in a trembling voice, "the target is the newly crowned, uncrowned king of Tianhuang." Shock and awe spread like wildfire, mingling with a growing undercurrent of fear. "I'd really like the chance to meet him," Ye Cheng admitted softly. Xiao Yiren froze mid-breath, severing stray thoughts to focus on the small token in her hand. She channeled a thread of spirit energy into its core, and the silvery surface bloomed with a holographic image and lines of text. Her eyes widened in surprise as she scanned the wanted notice. Standing beside her, Mo Yunjiao leaned in, curiosity gleaming in her gaze. "The Lord of the Wastelands, huh? I've heard stories. His strength and courage are said to be beyond anything we've seen." It was true that the Blood Sparrow clan ranked among the sacred lineages of the ancient era, but in the Wastelands their name was synonymous with terror. Humans and alien races alike whispered of the clan's warriors, unstoppable juggernauts who left no survivors, feasting on the blood of the fallen as offerings to their dark gods. So a bounty posted by the Blood Sparrows was never for petty criminals. It targeted only those daring or desperate enough to slay one of their champions. Even if 8 out of 10 targets proved to be ruthless villains, the remaining 2 had every right to fear the clan's unrelenting vengeance. In that scorched land, justice was as brutal and unavoidable as retribution itself. No matter which theory proved true, it didn't stop Gu Yiren and Mo Yunjiao from speculating about the Lord of the Desolate Realm. "If we really want to meet him, there's still a chance," Mo Yunjiao murmured, her gaze fixed on the looming silhouette of the desolate tower. "He'll almost certainly go there to train. If we're lucky, we might catch sight of him." Gu Yiren stood silently at her side, staring toward the distant spire. Frankly, the thought of meeting the Lord of the Desolate Realm held little appeal for him. He had never even laid eyes on the man. What truly stirred his heart was something far more personal. I hope I can find my father there," he whispered. A quiet determination settled over them both as they turned back toward the wasteland before the tower, ready to follow wherever the path might lead. Chapter 354. Gu Yiren's heart clenched with longing as she thought of her father, whom she hadn't seen for nearly a year. The past 6 months had been nothing short of extraordinary. From the trials of the fairy secret realm to the vast expanse of the northern wilderness, she had grown in ways she never imagined. Now, standing at the threshold of the desolate tower, she burned to share every detail of her journey with her father. Beside her, Mo Yunjiao's eyes shone with equal determination. Though she had pledged herself to Gu Yiren and formally become her follower, she still harbored her own ambition, to crush the Qingjiao clan threat by her own hand. The looming desolate tower offered exactly the chance she needed. "Let's go," Gu Yiren whispered, her voice steady with resolve. Mo Yunjiao nodded and flanked her friend as they hurried toward the tower's yawning entrance. A hush fell over the gathering of monks who had been speculating about Gu Yiren's true identity. The moment Mo Yunjiao swept in to protect and support her, all conjecture evaporated, Side by side, they crossed into the desolate tower, and beyond its gates lay the opportunity they both sought. Everyone hovered in stunned silence before their gazes snapped to the monk who'd first dared suggest Gu Yiren's true identity. His face was just as pale and shocked as theirs, until the two little girls slipped into the swirling teleportation vortex behind the desolate tower's entrance. Only then did they manage to collect themselves. They stared at the vortex, eyes nearly popping out. "That Miss Gu Yiren? She's really under 10 years old?" someone murmured. "No way." A ripple of unease passed through the monks. When the desolate tower finally reopened, everyone who'd entered would return, and along with them, the secret of Gu Yiren's age. A supreme demon under 10, already among the top 10 on the wilderness sheet and contending for the top 3. If that truth came to light, the entire wilderness, and all the regions beyond, would be thrown into chaos. Then, with a crackling rush of energy, another teleportation vortex tore open the air. Ye Cheng stepped out of the vortex and landed lightly on the uneven ground, his brow twitching in concern. "Something's wrong," he whispered, taking in the silent landscape. It had been more than half a year since he arrived in the northern wilderness. Most of that time he'd devoted to tempering the all-living purple chi cauldron, but he'd also mounted several expeditions, gathered a small network of allies, and built a reliable intelligence web. Now he understood the Wild Tower's workings better than most. Normally, when a cultivator enters the Wild Tower, their token flares to life and becomes a passage into a random pocket world. Basic copper tokens fire only once. After that, they're spent. To jump again, you have to locate a border-crossing teleportation array in the world you've just entered. Higher-grade gold tokens allow 3 uses before dimming, but even those are limited. To keep exploring new realms without such restrictions, you need to unearth the ancient teleportation arrays, long-lost relics capable of opening multiple cross-world gates and coveted by every serious explorer. Surveying the horizon, Ye Cheng steeled himself. If something had gone wrong with the tower's entry system, the answers and the dangers were likely waiting just beyond his next step. In the ordinary course of things, whether one wielded the copper tower or the gold tower, only a single portal would open, randomly depositing its bearer into one pocket realm. Yet here in the boundless void where Ye Cheng now stood, that rule no longer applied. Beneath his feet arched 9 brilliant bands of prismatic light, divine rainbows, crackling with power like a bridge woven from pure energy. At the end of each radiant arc swirled a teleportation vortex, each emanating a unique aura. One pulse throbs with murderous intent, another breathes a profound serenity, while a third roars with blistering flames that could reduce whole worlds to embers. By some feat of cultivation, or perhaps fate, Ye Cheng had summoned all 9 channels at once. Instead of being confined to a single random world, he could now choose among 9 different realms to explore. Normally, once a cultivator in the desolate tower stepped through a portal, they were bound to that world. To change course, they would have to seek out the tower's special altar, return to the void, and gamble on a new destination. But Ye Cheng had something few others possessed, the Jade Tower he had discovered earlier. With it, he could slip back into the void at will and pick any world he liked, making his journey across these pocket realms truly his own. Is this the Jade Tower's special ability, the token? Ye Cheng's eyes narrowed, a spark of excitement flaring within them. This discovery far exceeded his expectations. With the Jade Tower in hand, his efficiency in exploring the desolate tower would skyrocket, and the treasures he unearthed would be on an entirely different level from those of ordinary cultivators. Yet he didn't allow himself a moment's arrogance. Northern desolate Shenzhou has been open to the great world for over 20 years, he reminded himself. Even before the great world's opening, it was leagues more prosperous than Nanshuan Shenzhou. Indeed, Nanshuan Shenzhou had long been beset by demon invasions and infiltrated by alien spies, leaving its foundations unstable. Before the Great World officially began, its leading Taoist sects boasted nothing stronger than imperial-level cultivators. In contrast, Beihuang had already given rise to formidable saints. It was a realm brimming with geniuses, one that no one should ever underestimate. Based on the intelligence he'd gathered, tower tokens came in only 2 grades, copper and gold. But Ye Cheng knew his spy network, built to imperial standards, still had blind spots. Deep down he wondered, might there be some powerful clan's heir in possession of a white jade tower token? Time was short, and one misstep could cost everything. He had to remain vigilant. With that thought in mind, Ye Cheng steadied himself and studied the 9 portals arrayed before him. Each shimmering arch promised entry to a different pocket realm within the wild tower. After a moment's deliberation, he pointed toward the first gateway. This one, he decided. Crossing onto a slender rainbow bridge, he made his way to the gateway at its end. Beyond lay a roiling teleportation vortex, wreathed in searing flames and crackling with a destructive energy that threatened to consume all it touched. The wild tower contained 3,000 such worlds in total, but their difficulty levels and the quality of the divine treasures hidden within varied wildly. Of the 9 realms open to him now, the one he'd chosen was the most challenging of the lot. Taking a deep breath, Ye Cheng stepped forward into the infernal vortex, every nerve alight with anticipation. Whatever awaited him on the other side, he was ready. There was one more crucial advantage to this pocket realm. It was steeped in fire energy. Everywhere he looked, Ye Cheng could sense the presence of fire-holy medicines and blazing Dao seeds, treasures he'd never have access to in the wider world. Now that he'd broken through into the 6 paths of reincarnation, he was no longer confined to swordplay alone. He could absorb and refine precious herbs and Dao seeds of any attribute, forging them into tools for his own use. And if he came across something outside his elemental affinity, he would still gather it and set it aside for Yiren. At the thought of Yiren, Ye Cheng felt a warm smile tug at his lips, a soft fondness, almost pity, in his eyes. Yiren had always hoped he would find his way to the desolate tower. Now that he was famous throughout the desolate realm, he felt 90% certain she wouldn't let this chance slip by. She would come to the tower to train. With the white jade tower token in his hand, and their blood bond linking him to her, he could track her wherever she went, even if she hid deep within Lord's halls and eluded him for a while. He knew that the moment she stepped back out, they would meet once more. I reminded myself, as a father, I still needed to prepare some gifts. With that thought, Ye Cheng settled on which miniature world to enter and stood ready to depart. Meanwhile, in another void, a cadre of burly warriors clad in the teal and white garb of the Qingjiao tribe formed a semicircle around a single youth. Although barely 20, Rong Yinwu emanated a quietly blossoming aura. He had already attained Xuanzun perfection. Such raw talent marked him as one of the greatest prodigies in all of Beihuang Shenzhou, surpassed only by the heirs of saint-level sects like the Silver Snow Demon Clan. As soon as the Qingjiao elite sensed his power, triumphant smiles spread across their faces. Then Rong Yinwu produced his tower token, a small piece of jade rather than the gleaming gold tokens favored by the great wilderness sects, and their arrogance turned to outright contempt. Compared to Ye Cheng's flawless white jade tower, Rong Yinwu's token still bore faint streaks of bronze impurities. The assembled Qingjiao warriors exchanged confident glances. In their eyes, this demonstration of status only confirmed what they already believed. No one in their tribe, no one in all Beihuang Shenzhou, could rival a Xuanzun perfecter of such pedigree. Yet destiny had a way of humbling even the proudest among them. Even so, the warriors of the Qingjiao clan could not hide their pride at possessing the Jade Tower token of the wilds. The Jade Tower token of the wilderness, young Master Xianxia announced with a self-satisfied grin. Across the entire frontier, no one but our clan could have claimed it. He swept his arm in a grand gesture. We poured endless effort into surveying over 10 golden towers before finally forging this token. As he spoke, he channeled a pulse of spiritual energy into the translucent jade. Instantly, the token hummed to life, its surface splitting open to reveal 2 shimmering passageways. The assembled clan warriors stared in awe. Xianxia's eyes shone with triumph. Now, each time we return to the void, we can activate 2 portals at once, giving us a choice of small worlds to explore. We'll select only the richest, most promising realms. He let the implication hang in the air. With this advantage, the Qingjiao clan will outpace every rival. On this expedition through the Wild Tower, we will be the greatest beneficiaries of all. Then it will be done. Mo Yunjiao will be utterly crushed, and all of them trampled beneath my heel. The young master of the Qingjiao clan spoke with a cold gleam in his eyes. Not just Mo Yunjiao, but that newcomer, Ye Cheng, and even the moon spirit goddess. He paused, letting his promise hang in the air. None of them shall escape me. I will bend them all to my will. Chapter 355. Ye Cheng stepped out of the void vortex and into the fire world, a pocket realm among the desolate tower's 3,000 small worlds. The instant he arrived, an almost tangible wave of heat slammed into him. Instinctively, he held his breath and split his awareness, probing the environment with careful precision. Moments later, he withdrew his consciousness, and a spark of excitement lit his eyes. "Desolate tower," he murmured, "truly worthy of one who has ascended the immortal path." He could sense it immediately. The spiritual energy here was overwhelmingly dense, like a roaring furnace waiting to be harnessed. Even more astonishing, this world contained a complete, undiluted law of the great Tao of fire, solely the fire path, without any trace of dilution. That meant a fire-attributed cultivator training here would progress at a rate unimaginable elsewhere. His refining speed would soar, his insights deepen, and with extraordinary talent, daily enlightenment might become a reality. Ye Cheng allowed a small smile to flicker across his lips. Outside the tower, even supreme geniuses struggled to break through barriers. Here, a mere spark of talent could ignite a blaze of advancement. This small world was not just a training ground, it was a forge for greatness. He drew a slow breath, feeling the fire chi swirl through his body. Ahead lay countless opportunities and dangers, but Ye Cheng's resolve was firm. In this world of flames, he would stoke his own path to ultimate power. Cultivators of other elemental affinities would fare far worse here. A few months' sojourn might be harmless, but overstay your welcome and your foundation begins to corrode. None of that bothered Ye Cheng. He possessed the chaotic body, an existence that could dissolve all things back into primordial void, and he'd already unlocked the 6 reincarnation vessels. On top of that, he'd refined a fire seed into his core, making him, in every respect, a true fire cultivator. His sword technique hadn't yet matched that elemental mastery, but within this smoldering microcosm of flame, he moved with absolute confidence. And yet, Ye Cheng lifted a hand to channel his spiritual power and reinforce his defenses. The instant he invoked his aura, a cascade of prismatic law light descended from the very heavens and earth, coating him like an unbreakable vice and snuffing out his divine force. This was the immortal Tao's own suppression, an authority far beyond any secret realm constraint he had ever encountered. He frowned, sensing that here, even the might of his chaotic body would be tested as never before. Under the constraints of the immortal law, even Ye Cheng could only channel his spiritual power up to the Xuanzun realm. Likewise, his fighting strength was held in check. No matter how fierce his assault, the very rules of the immortal way would sap and suppress him back to Xuanzun-level might, a limit he couldn't breach. "Fascinating," Ye Cheng murmured, a spark of excitement dancing in his narrowed eyes. There was no fear here, only curiosity. This was a sensation he'd never experienced before. He could sense that the immortal law harbored hidden secrets of the supreme array, arcane patterns waiting to be unraveled. If he could decipher even a fragment of them, his array-based techniques would advance by leaps and bounds. Steeling his mind, Ye Cheng allowed his aura to surge. He wouldn't settle for a routine barrage of strikes. Instead, he activated one of his most potent transformations, the chaotic body. Instantly, his entire being thrummed with untamed power, and each blow he delivered was enveloped in raw, swirling chaos. With a sudden roar, he unleashed his enhanced strength in a single devastating strike, an experiment to see just how far the immortal law's restrictions could be pushed. Boom! Ye Cheng's sword slash rent the void, awakening the concealed immortal auras that stifled every cultivator's power between heaven and earth. One after another, those suppressive energies surged to counter his blade, only to be consumed by the chaotic essence coursing through his sword. Infused with that raw power, the weapon erupted in brilliance, and before anyone could react, broke through to the heavenly venerable perfection realm. "Just as I thought," Ye Cheng murmured, eyes glittering. "Immortal laws are worthless against true immortality." He shifted his focus, canceling the chaotic body technique and invoking the 6 reincarnation body instead. In an instant, 6 divine wheels materialized behind him, each spinning with inexorable force. As before, his martial might shattered the Wild Tower's restrictions, propelling him yet again to heavenly venerable status, though this advancement was far from his ultimate potential. In the iron-red sands of the Fireworld's great desert, Ye Cheng braced himself against a rolling heat shimmer. Before him hovered the invisible boundaries of the desolate tower's immortal restrictions, ancient laws inscribed in spiritual energy that tested even the most formidable cultivators. Today, he meant to bend them to his will. Drawing in a deep breath, Ye Cheng called upon 2 of his most fearsome techniques at once, the chaotic body and the 6 reincarnation body. He sealed both with his divine blessings, then summoned the 6 divine wheels, each wheel a spinning testament to his mastery over disorder. As the wheels surged, they fused with the raw chaos in the air, coalescing into a single, seething strike. When unleashed, that blow shattered any mortal standard. Its killing power overrode the Wild Tower's upper limits by 2 entire realms, rivaling the earliest stage of the Saint Venerable realm itself. Ye Cheng wasn't done. He arranged the Xianxia sword formation around him and ignited the purple chi cauldron of all living beings. Those 2 artifacts amplified his might so dramatically that even a rival who resorted to forbidden arms and who had artificially elevated himself into the Saint Venerable tier would have no choice but to flee before him. Boom! With that thunderous roar, the desert sands convulsed. Chaotic energy rippled outward, entwined with 6 shimmering lights that carved streaks through the atmosphere. The very void trembled, as if on the verge of giving way to something far greater. Any veteran who'd witnessed the desolate tower's trials would recognize the spectacle for what it was, a display beyond imagination, a power that seemed to rend reality itself. But to Ye Cheng, it was simply another day's work. He pressed on, determined to master every law the tower could throw at him, and then surpass it entirely. For centuries, the desolate tower has manifested repeatedly within the desolate realm, luring countless powerful cultivators into its depths. Yet no matter how formidable an emperor might be, the tower's suppression reduces ordinary emperors to the early Xuanzun stage, and even the mightiest among them can only muster late-stage Xuanzun power. True Xuanzun perfection is almost unheard of. Even the quasi-saints, those who deliberately temper their cultivation to train inside, can only maintain Xuanzun-level strength without aid, and at best, they can breach that limit by a single level for just a fleeting moment when wielding extraordinary artifacts. But Ye Cheng was different. Relying solely on his own cultivation, he shattered that ceiling without a single external treasure. If news of his achievement spreads, it will reverberate across the entire desolate realm. One day later, Ye Cheng finally stilled his efforts, a bright gleam of triumph shining in his eyes. Ye Cheng hovered motionless in midair, his cultivation aura pulsing like rippling water. He drew upon his spiritual power, letting it flow outward until it traced points of light in the void around him. With each point he touched, a rune bloomed, a lattice of silver glyphs weaving together an intricate fairy array that echoed the ancient prohibitory formations of the desolate tower. The pattern spiraled outward, runes locking into place with uncanny precision. Though it fell short of a full fairyland-level deci, again, it was no less extraordinary, an entirely new formation born of fairy restrictions, one that fused traditional array craft with the Tao rhymes of his own spirit. A spark of triumph lit Ye Cheng's eyes. The very moment the final rune snapped home, the array hummed with power. He felt a surge in his formation attainments, as if a dam had burst. "If this works," he murmured, heart pounding, "then every formation I weave from now on can integrate the Tao rhymes of fairy restriction. Their power will multiply. When I need to dismantle a formation, this pattern will let me shatter it in half the time. Even saint-level arrays won't stand a chance, unless it's the rare, top-tier Holy Monarch formation." He allowed a wide grin. Until today, his ceiling had been ordinary saint-level arrays, both in construction and in destruction. But now, he'd vaulted himself into an elite realm that few ever reached. Ye Cheng's spirit resonated with excitement. "It's only a matter of time before I break through even the greatest formations. Let them come." He lifted his head to gaze across the empty void, the newly born array still glowing faintly around him. Everything was different now. Weightless light, whispered runes, the vast promise of power at his command. The world of formations had just opened its gates, and Ye Cheng was ready to stride through. Of course, there's a certain trick to all this, much like how cultivators wield high-grade spirit artifacts to amplify their power, but the Wild Tower's mechanism is fundamentally different. As Ye Cheng's cultivation level rises, he will gradually unlock the true meaning of the immortal array pattern he's deciphered, eventually fusing it completely into his array techniques. When that day comes, he will stand as a genuine array saint king, capable of slaying a holy realm king with nothing more than a perfectly executed array. The Wild Tower truly is extraordinary, Ye Cheng breathed, awe in his voice. Left behind by the immortals themselves, every chamber overflows with potential. With enough talent, there's opportunity here at every turn. I can't wait for my next exploration. A soft sigh of satisfaction slipped from his lips as a bright light danced in his eyes. He hadn't expected such a windfall from his very first foray into the tower. Its immortal restrictions alone had propelled his array mastery to unprecedented heights. Next, he said, turning his gaze outward, it's time to venture farther afield. On the horizon, the hazy silhouettes of distant volcanoes loomed, as if beckoning him toward new challenges and discoveries. Ye Cheng felt it first as a distant rumble beneath his feet, a steady flow of molten lava pumping through the heart of the volcanoes ahead. In that molten roar lingered a profound Tao resonance. Rare treasures had to be hidden in those fiery crags, and anyone who dared explore them stood to gain immeasurably. He gathered his will and prepared to fly toward the volcanic peaks. But barely had he cleared the tree line when a squadron of crimson-robed figures streaked toward him on their own auras of heat. "By the heavens! Fire monks!" one of them cried. "What luck to run into one out here!" Another added, "The Holy Sun's decree arrived with unheard urgency. He demands we enslave 100 fire monks to help mine the newly discovered blazing veins. But fire monks are as elusive as they come, nearly impossible to catch, until today." A third lit a triumphant grin. "And look at his speed. He's faster than a normal Xuanzun. If he can mine half as well as he can escape, the Holy Sun will shower us with rewards." They hovered, eyes glinting with anticipation, even as Ye Cheng fixed them with a wary gaze and readied himself for the inevitable clash. The hunters' gazes burned with the excitement of having cornered a rare prize. One of them, a broad-shouldered, middle-aged man, stepped forward and called out, "Boy, don't try to run. Come with us, and we'll spare you the pain." Without waiting for a reply, he raised his hand and pointed. Instantly, a surge of divine energy lanced toward Ye Cheng, coalescing in midair into a glowing rope meant to snare him. The rope's oppressive aura alone was enough to overwhelm a mid-stage Xuanzun cultivator with ease. It was clear that, by outside world standards, this man's true power ranked at least among the Saint Emperors, perhaps even higher, making him one of the elite, the kind of talent prized by both the ancient Saint clan and the human Saint sect. Confident that Ye Cheng was already effectively bound, the other red-robed monks stood back, watching with idle curiosity. Their smug anticipation, however, vanished in an instant, replaced by sheer shock. Their prey was not going down so easily. Ye Cheng made no move to defend himself. He hovered silently among the clouds as the glowing ropes of light descended over him. The moment they tried to coil around his body, however, a veil of chi flared across his skin. With a single, subtle tremor, the ropes snapped and splintered into shards before dissolving into nothingness. "What?" Chapter 356. Several of the men froze, surprise flickering in their eyes as they stared at Ye Cheng, especially the middle-aged leader who had just attacked him. "I didn't expect you to still have any strength," the man snarled. "But you won't escape now. Everyone, move in, seize him, and bring him before the Holy Sun." He stepped forward, unleashing his spiritual weapon. A massive divine bell, its surface carved with ancient runes and belching crimson clouds, hovered into the air, unleashing a suffocating pressure on Ye Cheng. At the same moment, the other strongmen sprang into action. The clearing erupted in blinding light as their treasures and artifacts streamed toward him, divine energy crashing down like a waterfall. But Ye Cheng remained perfectly composed. He didn't draw on any spiritual power. He relied solely on his own physique. With a single deft movement, he dispersed the heavenly radiance and swept all the crimson-robed attackers aside, each one sent flying by the force of his palm. His eyes gleamed like lightning. "Now," he said quietly, "where is this blazing fire mine you spoke of?" Blazing fire ore is a top-tier imperial material, exceedingly rare and prized for crafting divine weapons. By infusing a weapon with its fire spirit, a forge master can dramatically boost its power. In the entire southern Xuan divine continent, only a handful of blazing fire ore veins are known to exist. Now, in this pocket fire realm, Ye Cheng has unexpectedly come across one of them, and he has no intention of letting it slip away. Not only could he use the ore to refine swords and staves for Xiaoyuan and the others, strengthening their defenses, but he could also empower his own holy weapons. His most formidable asset, the Zhuxian sword array, unleashes 4 deadly blades. Of the 4, only the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Sword, awakened by the Vermilion Bird Heavenly Seal, has reached Saint King level. The remaining 3 are still at mere holy weapon rank, with ample room for improvement. Before Ye Cheng can claim the ore, a chilling voice echoes through the cavern. "Halt! We are the Red Mist Sect. Attack us here, and you'll die without so much as a grave to mark your passing. How dare you lay claim to our sect's blazing fire veins?" Even bound and disarmed, the red-robed warriors glared at Ye Cheng with fierce defiance. The middle-aged man who had led the attack forced his voice into a threatening growl. "If you know what's good for you, set us free at once. Otherwise, once you leave the desolate tower, it won't just be you who's destroyed. Your family and your entire sect will be razed to the ground." Ye Cheng recognized the name of his captive sect, the Red Mist Sect. A top-tier imperial order, it stood among the most feared powers in the desolate realm. Though officially a human sect, its true strength came from the backing of the ancient Blood Sparrow clan. With their formidable support, the Red Mist Sect ruled its territories with arrogant brutality. Worse still, the human population under their dominion lived in constant terror. Despite the Chiwu sect's own claim to humanity, it had long since become little more than a vassal to the myriad races, most notably the Blood Sparrow clan. Within Red Mist territory, humans were not allies but prey, hunted and oppressed by sparrow warriors at every turn. Ye Cheng knew that challenging such a formidable alliance would be no small feat. Yet here they stood, locked in this deadly standoff. Every so often, a host of blood sparrows, warriors born on crimson wings, would sweep across the land, draining entire cities, or even small countries, for blood offerings. Mortal sects and noble houses seethed with anger, but none dared challenge the fearsome Blood Sparrow clan directly. "I didn't expect to find you here," the middle-aged swordsman said, stepping forward with a calm smile. Ye Cheng's eyes went ice-cold. Without a word of warning, he released his full force in a single, lightning-fast strike. The swordsman barely had time to react. With a soft puff, his body collapsed, breath snatched away before he could even close his eyes. His comrades froze in shock. They had counted on their family name as a shield, never imagining someone would cut them down outright. "Is that what you're banking on? Your bloodline? Your reputation?" Ye Cheng's voice cut through the stunned silence as he surveyed the remaining fighters. Each one trembled under his glare. At Emperor Cultivation level, soul-searching techniques were notoriously difficult to execute without total surprise. Masters of this rank sealed their minds with fail-safe magic. The moment they died, their souls would combust, erasing every memory to protect their sect's secrets. It was the ultimate safeguard against interrogation. But Ye Cheng didn't flinch. He knew those safeguards weren't infallible, and he intended to prove it. Gudong. Under the unflinching chill in Ye Cheng's eyes, the Red Mist sect elders immediately lost their bravado. They fumbled for words, detailing everything they knew. Ye Cheng's divine sense sifted through their testimony as easily as one separates chaff from grain. He could tell instantly what was real and what was fabrication. "Far to the north of this pocket world," one elder began, voice trembling, "lies a volcanic expanse stretching tens of thousands of miles. Beneath it runs an incredibly rich blazing fire vein. Our scouts estimate its yield at over 100,000 jin." Ye Cheng's eyes widened. 100,000 jin? Even at the emperor tier, veins more often yielded only a few hundred jin. Thousands was notable, tens of thousands almost unheard of. But 100,000 jin of blazing fire ore, recognized as one of the highest-grade emperor materials, suggested something extraordinary. Such a vein would almost certainly be laced with rare byproducts, quasi-saint ores at the very least, and perhaps even true saint-grade materials lurking in its deepest reaches. This was far beyond any ordinary emperor-level vein. It was a treasure beyond imagining. Ye Cheng stood at the edge of the cavern and gazed down at the blazing fire vein winding through the volcanic rock. Countless eruptions over millennia had infused this deposit with divine energy so intense that it could give rise to a quasi-saint. A discovery like this was nothing short of miraculous, a treasure trove no sect could ignore. But such wealth came with deadly risks. Each tremor of the active volcano sent rivers of superheated magma roaring through the tunnels, magma so corrosive that even a Xuan sovereign would be reduced to slag on contact. No ordinary miner could withstand those temperatures. That's why the young master of the Red Mist sect had dispatched his forces across the realm to capture fire monks, rare cultivators whose bodies were legendary for resisting molten flows. Under their guidance, the veins could be mined safely and swiftly. Now a squad of Red Mist sect warriors knelt before Ye Cheng, their crimson robes dusted with ash. Their commander, a stoic man whose throat trembled, bowed his head. "My lord," he said, voice quavering, "we have disclosed everything about the vein's location and structure. May you have mercy on us." Ye Cheng regarded him in silence, moments stretched in the heavy, sulfur-tainted air. At last, Ye Cheng straightened, eyes cool and steady. "You're free to go." A collective gasp rose from the kneeling warriors. Relief flooded their faces as they fumbled at the ropes binding their wrists. Their commander dared a glance upward. When his gaze met Ye Cheng's, something fierce ignited behind his eyes. Ambition tempered by caution, but very much alive. Ye Cheng simply nodded once, then turned and strode past them, leaving the rescued captives to their mixed feelings of gratitude and lingering resolve. As he vanished into the smoky twilight, the roar of the volcano echoed behind him, a reminder that true power often lay hidden beneath the world's most dangerous riches. "Today's humiliation will be paid back twofold," one of the Red Mist sect warriors snarled. "It won't matter," another replied, confidence in his voice. "Our intelligence network has already guided him toward the mine. Deep within its caverns lie the true masters of our sect. Even here in the desolate tower, their strength rivals Xuanzun's perfection. With the saint's forbidden weapons at their disposal, he won't live to tell the tale." As the conspirators reveled in their imagined victory, Ye Cheng cut through their boasts with a single, calm sentence. "I could execute you all, but your living crime is far worse." Without warning, streams of blinding light erupted from Ye Cheng's palms and slashed into the warriors. Horror painted their faces as their dantians, centers of their spiritual power, cooked under the onslaught. Each man collapsed in agony, clutching his bleeding belly as his cultivation was extinguished in an instant. "Ah, how dare you, little beast! You monster!" they cried in unison, voices choked with fury and despair. "I curse you," one gasped, blood flecking his lips. "I curse you for all eternity." They spewed their last crimson droplets in desperation, but Ye Cheng paid them no heed. He stepped back and surveyed the crippled men writhing at his feet. They knew the cruel truth of the desolate tower. Once its doors sealed behind you, no one escapes unless they swing open again. Here they would remain, broken and helpless, until the tower chose to set them free. And somewhere deep in its shadows, even greater masters waited to ensure the debts of today were collected in full. Ye Cheng surveyed the desolate expanse before him. Within the 3,000 pocket worlds of the desolate tower, danger lurked at every turn. Cultivators stranded here had long since lost their strength, and with no way to contact their sects or even secure the closest rendezvous point, they were destined to perish in this wasteland. Yet Ye Cheng felt no pity for the group now cowering before him. They claimed allegiance to the Red Mist sect, a faction notorious for its brutality toward fellow humans. Time and again, they'd offered blood sacrifices and fawned over the Blood Sparrow clan. The metallic stench of spilled lifeblood clung to their robes, It was clear they'd been herding captured fire monks to serve as forced laborers in the tower's mines. How could Ye Cheng, himself a protector of the innocent, let such monsters go unpunished? At his unspoken judgment, one of the monks dared to hurl a curse. "You'll regret crossing us, wretch." Ye Cheng's lips curved into a cold smile. "Curse me?" he replied softly, voice laced with amusement. "You have more courage than sense." Before the monk could react, a scorching aura leapt from Ye Cheng's palm, raven-black flames that licked hungrily at the air, and engulfed his attacker. The monk's shriek of terror was cut short as the fire seared through his defenses, his robes snapping and curling to ash. Staring in horrified disbelief, he realized too late that Ye Cheng's mercy had run out. Ye Cheng's victim let out one final, desperate cry. "No! What's happening? This can't be real!" He clawed at the roaring flames that engulfed him, but the fire only burned hotter. In the next instant, his figure disintegrated into a cloud of ash that drifted away on the wind. Ye Cheng watched without a flicker of sympathy. After all, he commanded more than one grand art, most notably the dread curse technique. It was said even a Saint Dao master who tried to lay a curse on him risked being caught in Ye Cheng's counter-curse. Why bother with weaklings like these? With a casual flick of his wrist, he summoned a cloud beneath his feet and soared toward the mountain mine. Days later, he arrived at the labyrinthine cavern the Red Mist sect had mentioned. He hovered outside the entrance, peering into the gloom. "It seems the Holy Sun and his escorts have already left," he murmured. Where could they have gone? He closed his eyes and extended his spirit sense into the tower. The ancient runic seals here did dampen the raw force of any spiritual assault, but they posed no barrier to simple exploration. As his awareness drifted through shadowed corridors, Ye Cheng prepared himself for whatever secrets and adversaries awaited within. Ye Cheng closed his eyes and sparked his divine consciousness. His spiritual perception rippled outward like a silent tide, sweeping across the courtyard and instantly locking onto the nearby Red Mist sect cultivators. In the next instant, he materialized behind one of them. With the utmost subtlety, no blaze of light, no fanfare, he reached out and cloaked the man's soul in a crushing psychic grip. The sectarian froze, panic ripping through his eyes. "You, who are you?" Ye Cheng let the question hang in the air. He wound his spiritual power tighter, wrenching the man's soul free from its vessel. Once it hovered before him in his mindscape, he gave it a single, decisive twist. The soul shattered like brittle glass, and Ye Cheng sifted through the fragments, absorbing every memory. A faint smile curved his lips. According to what he gleaned, the other masters and so-called saints of the Red Mist sect had already decamped for the nearby marketplace to hawk their blazing ore and barter for resources. Perfect, they'd all be out of the way for now. Satisfied, Ye Cheng gently released his divine consciousness. No trace of his intrusion remained. He opened his eyes, cool and unruffled, and melted back into the shadows. Boom! A thunderous shockwave, testament to Xuanzun-level power, rocked the Red Mist sect's mining encampment. Monks paused in alarm, glancing toward the source. "Who dares trespass on Red Mist territory? Do you seek your own death?" one bellowed. A distant voice crackled back. "He's in the 3rd Earth Division. Reinforcements, move at once, seize that beast." Another shout followed. "His aura, it's exceptional. Prepare the forbidden weapons." In an instant, a squad of Red Mist sect masters materialized on their cloud steeds, hurtling toward Ye Cheng's position. Halfway there, several veered off to sound the alarm for the senior guardians posted at the mine's perimeter. Below, the hundreds of captive laborers, men and women dragged here to extract ore for the sect, lifted their weary heads. Once hopeful seekers of fortune in the desolate tower, they had instead been enslaved toiling in darkness. Now, watching cultivators converge in a display of raw power, their eyes shone with renewed hope. With the tower's opening only days away, they dared to believe that rescue, or at least a chance at escape, might finally be within reach. Just as Ye Cheng dared to hope, a wave of dread washed over him. From the mist-shrouded heights above the desolate tower, 3 of the Red Mist sect's top masters descended. Each was a late-stage emperor cultivator, powerful in the outside world, and even under the desolate tower's suppressive laws of the immortal Tao, they still wielded the full might of a Xuanzun. In unison, they drew an ominous talisman, its surface emblazoned with H, the crimson wings of the Blood Sparrow clan, a forbidden weapon jealously guarded by their sect. As they ignited its seal, a fierce red glow enveloped them. Their auras surged, smashing through the barrier that confined them to Emperor-level power and catapulting them into the realm of the Heavenly Venerable. A grim satisfaction lit their eyes. Even in this sealed space, reclaiming the early stage of Heavenly Venerable cultivation was no small feat. More importantly, they now possessed Xuanzun-level power to match Ye Cheng's extraordinary talent, a talent they were determined to exploit. A youth strong enough to rival a Xuanzun cultivator, one master murmured, voice low with greed. He could be invaluable in our quest to open that mine. Sacrificing our forbidden talisman for him is more than worth it. With that decision made, the three masters signaled their subordinates. Like vultures circling prey, dozens of Red Mist sect disciples formed a tightening cordon around Ye Cheng, one group to the north, another to the south, and a third to the east. "It's over," one of the masters declared, stepping forward with a cruel smirk. "This so-called prodigy may be talented, but he's a heartbeat too slow." Ye Cheng's heart pounded as he found himself surrounded on all sides, trapped between the overwhelming might of three newfound heavenly venerables and the fanatical zeal of their disciples. There would be no easy way out this time. "The enemy's deployed a forbidden weapon. There's no way we can win," one miner gasped, voice trembling. "I only hope he gets away," another murmured, glancing skyward. "If he survives, maybe he'll strike this place again. Then perhaps we can slip away in the chaos." Murmurs of despair rippled through the gathered workers. Some bowed their heads, unable to watch any longer. Above them, Ye Cheng hovered in midair, eyes alight with unshakable courage. Three of the Red Mist sect's top masters confronted him, and with a swift motion he unleashed a blade of searing light toward the trio. The masters exchanged amused glances. "Such a pathetic trick," one sneered. "Hardly worth our time." A second master, ranked among the sect's elite, laughed coldly. He left his spirit weapon sheathed, stepping forward with bare fists crackling in multicolored energy. "You think your talent can rival us? Watch closely," he taunted. His palms ignited in a rainbow halo as he invoked the Heavenly Venerable Resonance. A vast pressure wave exploded outward, as immense and merciless as a tidal abyss. The miners below staggered under the shockwave, struggling for breath against its crushing weight. High above, Ye Cheng steadied himself, blade of radiance still poised to strike. Though the gap in power seemed insurmountable, his expression never wavered. He had faced worse odds, and he refused to yield. But in the next instant, the man's mocking grin froze and twisted into a scream as the metallic stench of blood filled the air. "Ah, my hand!" he howled, staggering backward, terror in his eyes. Where he had swung his arm moments before, only a bloody stump remained, blood spraying skyward. "What? The leader didn't block it?" one disciple gasped. "That sword, sheer trickery! Fall back!" another shouted. The Red Mist sect masters paled and scrambled to retreat, but it was too late. Ye Cheng's lips curved into a contemptuous smile. With a slight flick of his wrist, he poured his spiritual energy into the shimmering blade. In an instant, the sword chi bloomed outward, growing into a 100-foot arc that crashed over the clustered sect disciples like a crimson tsunami. "Ah!" they screamed, desperately clawing at the ground as the blade cut them down one after another. Limbs were cleaved, bodies shattered, and their blood rained across the rocky clearing. Within moments, the once proud masters of the Red Mist sect lay lifeless among the dust and stones. Only the terrified miners watching from below remained, frozen in horror at the slaughter they had just witnessed. Before the miners could even shake off the surprise of his first maneuver, Ye Cheng moved again. In the blink of an eye, he rose to the very center of the cavern, hovering in midair. He stretched out his arms, and a surge of spiritual power exploded from his dantian. The Six Paths Divine Wheel and the Chaos Chi coalesced there, their energies intertwining like an unfathomable abyss. Beneath him, the earth groaned and split open. Deep-seated veins of blazing fire ore, long concealed far below the surface, were ripped apart by Ye Cheng's sheer force. Without hesitation, he activated the purple chi cauldron of all living beings, offering it up to draw in the surrounding energy. A spiraling black hole of violet chi blossomed above the cauldron, throbbing with an overwhelming gravitational pull. Boom! The cavern shook as the vortex's force sucked every fragment of fire ore and every trace of divine materials into the cauldron. In the time it takes for a single incense stick to burn, the entire vein had vanished into its depths. When the dust settled, the cauldron glowed with an otherworldly light, its stores now filled to the brim. The miners stood frozen, jaws agape, staring up at Ye Cheng as he drifted among the settling clouds of debris. It wasn't just any vein they'd witnessed him claim. It was a top-tier Emperor-grade fire vein, the stuff of legends. Under normal circumstances, even the Emperor himself couldn't have claimed all these imperial veins so effortlessly. "Who is this lord?" one of the miners blurted, awe and excitement rippling through the group. Ye Cheng's own heart raced. He hadn't yet tallied today's haul precisely, but a quick glance was enough to confirm a major find. Nestled among the ore was a piece of strange, amber-red crystal pulsing with concentrated essence. Even the faintest probe with his divine consciousness sent a thrill through his soul. He longed to absorb its power immediately. This, he realized, was a top-tier sacred material, glass flame heart milk. Fire saints coveted it as the ultimate forging essence for life-spirit implements. Beyond that, it could dramatically accelerate a fire monk's progress along the flame meridian and exponentially boost the efficiency of refining fire seeds. Perfect. Xiaoyiren would put it to excellent use. "I've found just the right little gift," Ye Cheng murmured with a wry smile. He stowed the Zongluli flame heart milk in his storage bag, then turned his gaze to the wide chasm yawning in the mountain below. Removing the ore vein had rent the earth apart, but deep in that ravine, he could sense an even richer vein of earth core fire. Earth core fire was notoriously violent. Ordinary cultivators and even quasi-saints could barely contain it. To Ye Cheng, however, it posed little difficulty. He descended into the abyss in a single bound, his hand tracing the intricate patterns of a 9-tier formation. A translucent barrier sprang into being around him, shielding his body as he divided his consciousness and sent it surging into the fire's very eye. Under the suppressive force of his will, the rampaging flames, ones that would have consumed lesser masters, bowed to his command. They became the perfect forge for his sacrificial offerings and weapon refinement. Hualala! The earth core divine fire roared like a massive waterfall, cascading over the sacred materials Ye Cheng had prepared. Under his precise direction, the flames washed and purified each ingredient, burning away impurities and forging them into something far more potent than before. In barely a week's time, Ye Cheng had harnessed the Earth's core divine fire to its fullest. The sacred materials he'd gathered were reduced to their purest heavenly earthly essence, then seamlessly woven into the 3 holy-grade killing swords he held. Ordinarily, such a sacrificial refinement would demand months of painstaking work, and even then, few could hope to succeed. Yet here, in the depths of the abyss, the divine flames obeyed his will, and in just 7 days he had perfected his blades. As the final embers of the core fire died down, committing the last trace of power to his swords, Ye Cheng stood silent amid the smoke and ash, every fiber of his being attuned to their dormant might. Far above, on the fringes of the mining zone, a procession of red mist sect cultivators emerged from the twilight. Clad in flowing crimson robes, they moved with disciplined grace, their ranks punctuated by war horses and carriage-borne banners. At their forefront rode a young man whose confident posture and unmistakable aura announced him without words, the holy son of the Red Mist Sect. Chapter 358. Elder Yan and the other senior disciples gathered around Ye Cheng, their faces lit with admiration. "Thanks to your leadership, Holy Son," Elder Yan began, "we've profited immensely on this expedition. The rare materials we've recovered could easily recruit another quasi-holy warrior for our sect." Elder Zhao nodded in agreement. "Once we leave the desolate tower, your position in the Red Mist Sect will be as unshakable as Mount Tai. No one will dare challenge you." Even Mu Heng, the sect's strongest perfect emperor present in this venture, looked at Ye Cheng with genuine respect. His praise, however, ran deeper than mere flattery. Everyone knew that Ye Cheng's rise through the Red Mist Sect had been accelerated by his close association with the Blood Sparrow clan, particularly a certain high-born maiden whose favor he'd won. It was that alliance that first earned him the Elder's trust. Yet today, leading them straight to the blazing fire deposit, Ye Cheng had demonstrated that his talents went far beyond useful connections. In that moment, it was clear he truly deserved every bit of the praise he received. Buoyed by the praise and support of the Red Mist Sect's senior elders, the Saint Heir allowed himself a self-satisfied grin. Still, he quickly reminded himself of his duties. Don't let your guard down, venerable elders. We need to recruit more miners and extract every last ounce of blazing fire ore for delivery to the Saint clan. We understand perfectly, Saint Heir, they replied in unison, nodding earnestly. Before dispatching their teams into the desolate tower, the Blood Sparrow clan had already issued strict orders to all its vassal sects. Gather every available imperial and sacred resource for the expedition forces and forward them to the minor worlds the clan has designated. No one in the Red Mist sect knew exactly how these materials would be used, but that mystery only spurred them on. After all, success here meant favor with the Blood Sparrow clan. One thing worries me, one elder confessed, lowering his voice. We've already scoured this entire world for human fire cultivators. There simply aren't any left to recruit. If we want to uncover more, we should begin with those alien tribes. Elder Lund spoke up tentatively, only to be cut off by the Red Mist sect, Saint's cold laughter. Are you out of your mind? Attack the ancient clan? Don't drag my sect into that chaos. We stick to the plan. Hunt down those human cultivators. If we can't find any fire element practitioners, bring back cultivators of other types. They're just minors. Losing a few of them is of no consequence. His voice, sharp as a blade, sent a shiver through Elder Lund. He bowed hastily. Yes, Saint, I will issue the orders immediately and speed up the operation. Good, the Saint said, nodding in approval, then paused mid-gesture. Wait, something's wrong. His gaze snapped to the heart of the blazing fire mine, where molten rock churned with fierce intensity. To him, that mine was more than a precious resource. It was the key to forging an alliance with the Blood Sparrow clan and propelling himself to unprecedented power. Ye Cheng, the Red Mist Saint, peered across the volcanic peaks, his expression suddenly paling. No, why has the fire element in that region weakened so drastically? What? An anxious elder echoed. Saint, you're not mistaken, another insisted. Every senior member of the Red Mist sect spun toward the volcanic cluster and channeled their spiritual senses. Moments later, their eyes widened in alarm. It's true. Could something be wrong at the blazing fire mine? One elder whispered, dread creeping into his voice. He tried in vain to contact the sect's guardians at the mine. Silence answered him. Ye Cheng's heart sank. It doesn't matter, he declared, masking his worry with authority. With the desolate tower standing guard over that deposit, nobody could have tampered with it. Anyone brave enough to challenge the Red Mist sect won't get far. At that critical moment, the perfect Emperor, commander of the expedition, stepped forward to steady the troops. Without hesitation, Ye Cheng and his entourage broke into a run, racing toward the volcanic ridge. But when they arrived, they froze in shock. A colossal chasm, like the slash of an immense sword, cleaved the volcanoes in two. Where did the blazing fire mine go? How could it simply vanish? Eldoran's voice trembled as he stared at the empty excavation site. Saint Lingmu of the Red Mist sect and the sect's only perfect emperor, Elder Xianxia, exchanged grim looks. In a heartbeat, they'd pieced it together. There's a powerhouse out there we can't afford to anger, Elder Xianxia growled. He's found our vein and taken it for himself. Saint Lingmu's eyes narrowed. Fall back at once. The Red Mist disciples didn't hesitate. Hearts pounding, they turned and fled toward the rim of the ravine. If a single cultivator could slip past their defenses and claim the blazing fire mine, he was clearly formidable. Perhaps not enough to challenge the Blood Sparrow clan, but more than a match for their own sect. But it was too late. From the depths of the chasm, a pillar of scarlet light soared upward. It writhed like a dragon unleashed, thinning the air to a scorching blade. Ah! Saint Lingmu's scream was cut short as the crimson sword energy arced down. From the abyss emerged Ye Cheng, his broadsword trailing a fiery wake. His eyes, cold and unwavering, locked onto the fleeing Red Mist disciples as he readied to strike. Ye Cheng stood alone in the moonlit courtyard, his sword humming softly at his side. Before him, the senior elders and high-ranking saints of the Red Mist sect glared in desperate defiance. "If you dare kill us," the eldest elder bellowed, voice cracking, "the Blood Sparrow clan will come for you with all their strength." Another raised his trembling hand. "Yes, we serve the Blood Sparrow clan, and even the ancient Saint clan itself. Don't think you can defy us." A mocking smile curved Ye Cheng's lips. His voice was calm, measured, yet it struck them like thunder. "The Blood Sparrow clan? It's nothing but a giant sparrow, and I could wipe it from the sky with a single flick of my wrist." Silence engulfed the courtyard. The elders' faces drained of color, their bravado evaporating in an instant. One of them stammered, "Ye Cheng? Impossible. You're the peerless executioner, the man who slew Emperor Shuiyuan himself." At that name, Ye Cheng's sword gleamed, a sliver of white light slicing through the night. In the next heartbeat, a wave of radiant qi burst forth, engulfing the Red Mist sect's proudest leaders. They screamed as the sword light seared through them, turning flesh and bone to ash almost as soon as the light faded. Only their wide, terrified eyes remained etched in memory before they too crumbled to dust. When the final ember of qi dissolved into the night air, the courtyard lay still and empty. The once raising banners of the Red Mist sect drooped, scorched by the genius blade that had struck so swiftly. A lone disciple, watching from the shadows, whispered in awe, "No wonder the Blood Sparrow clan prized him so highly. They even entrusted him with 3 of our sect's forbidden weapons." Interesting. Ye Cheng hovered beside the Earth Core's divine fire, then spiraled back toward his hidden retreat, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. In his palm lay 2 Blood Sparrow talismans, each pulsing with spiritual radiance. These were forbidden weapons, fabled tools of unparalleled killing power. In the open world, they could surge a cultivator's might to astonishing heights for a brief span. And even within sealed domains like the Desolate Tower, where all combatants suffer enforced limitations, a single talisman could smash through those bonds and elevate its user far above every rival. Yet such weapons are fiendishly difficult to forge and demand staggering resources. Only the greatest natural treasures will do, and each talisman stores just a handful of uses. Even the ancient Blood Sparrow clan, a power so vast it rules over countless vassals, can refine barely 20 to 30 at once. The Red Mist sect, one of its lesser branches, counts only 2 or 3 perfected emperors among its ranks. Ye Cheng turned the talismans over, savoring their hum of energy. With resources like these at his disposal, the next stage of his ascent would be unstoppable. Ye Cheng had confiscated 2 forbidden weapon talismans from the Red Mist clan scouts, including the one once held by the clan elder who guarded the blazing mine. They'd had 3 in total, far more than he'd expected. It didn't take long for him to uncover the reason. Hidden among their spoil was a communication talisman bearing the Red Mist Saint's seal. Activating it, Ye Cheng watched and listened as the saint reported directly to the Blood Sparrow clan's leadership. "Master, I've located the blazing mine and secured its perimeter. In exchange for our service, the Blood Sparrow clan has granted us 2 additional forbidden weapon talismans alongside our original one." Ye Cheng's lips curved into a faint smile. So that was why the clan had stockpiled those talismans, rewards for protecting the mine. Ironically, they were now his trophies. He flipped through the talisman's records until another broadcast caught his eye. By order of the Blood Sparrow clan, all major vassal sects must immediately collect and submit any rare materials in their possession. Ye Cheng paused, brow furrowed. What could the Blood Sparrow clan be planning with that many precious resources? He studied the glowing script, curiosity sparking in his gaze. Ye Cheng was already on thorns with the Blood Sparrow clan, and their arrogance only deepened his irritation. He tucked this grievance away in his mind, determined to probe their schemes as soon as he could. Although he didn't yet know the full scope of the clan's plans, he relished any opportunity to sabotage them. Besides, the Blood Sparrow clan had clearly poured tremendous effort into ordering their subordinate sects to harvest precious materials. They must have made a veritable fortune. If he could seize those resources for himself, elevating his Holy Dao killing sword to the Holy King tier would be child's play. And upgrading all 3 of his blades to that level, that would be a certainty. Chapter 359. All right, Ye Cheng murmured to himself. We need to find a rendezvous point, somewhere to rest, gather information, and stock up on supplies. He rose to his feet and swept his hand through the air. In an instant, 3 gleaming holy Dao killing swords materialized before him, each one hovering within the flaming core of the Earth's Heart Fire Eye. Ye Cheng let out a small sigh. The Earth's Heart Fire here was incredibly potent, but its reserves were limited. Over the past few days of withdrawal and sacrifice, he'd already consumed a great deal of it. He would have liked to stay longer and continue the enhancements, but there simply wasn't enough fire left. Still, the sacrifices had paid off. Each of the 3 killing swords had been pushed to its upper limit, far stronger than before, even if they hadn't yet reached the legendary Holy King tier. Their power had climbed by leaps and bounds. I've still got some quasi-divine and divine-grade materials from the blazing fire mine, he reminded himself. I haven't used them yet because their elemental properties didn't mesh with my earlier needs. Maybe I can trade them at the rendezvous point, see if there's something more suitable. With that resolved, Ye Cheng summoned his divine rainbow and surged into the sky, heading toward a larger gathering point not far away. The desolate tower stretches across 3,000 pocket worlds, its sheer size nearly matching that of the desolate realm itself. Such an immense domain naturally harbors countless relics, sacred treasures, and a myriad of living beings. Ancient records say that the tower's first inhabitants were monks of a Taoist branch founded by the Tower Lord. Fleeing a cataclysmic war in antiquity, they took refuge within its walls to preserve their bloodline. Over uncounted centuries, they acclimated fully to the tower's arcane laws that sever all ties with the outside world and bind them eternally within its borders. Their numbers grew, and they formed a vast, insular tribe. In time, other wanderers stumbled into the tower's confines, and by some chance, their bodies and spirits attuned naturally to its peculiar rules. They too remained, becoming a new generation of the tower's indigenous peoples. United by circumstance rather than blood, both the ancient monks and these later arrivals established settlements across the many mini-worlds scattered throughout the desolate tower. Whenever the desolate tower's gates swing open, cultivators from beyond its walls, monks, treasure hunters, and martial artists, rush to the designated meeting points during the tower's intermissions. There, they trade spoils, share rumors, and gather crucial intelligence. Until now, Ye Cheng had only heard whispers of these gatherings. No map, no guide. But after his decisive victory over the Red Mist sect, he had acquired a wealth of insider information that more than made up for his previous ignorance. His destination was Moshan City, the most renowned trading hub in the fire elemental realm. After handing over the 100 spirit crystals required for admission, he passed through the gates without incident and entered the bustling metropolis. His purpose was simple: head to the market without delay. The market district lay at Moshan's heart, a cacophony of shouting merchants and clinking bronze scales. It was the city's busiest quarter, where outsiders, cultivators newly arrived from the desolate tower, bartered their looted relics, and where long-established locals hawked ancient treasures they'd unearthed over decades. Compared to the itinerant monks who ventured into the tower for short-term expeditions, these native dealers had spent countless years within its shifting halls, amassing artifacts and arcane knowledge that now glittered on their stalls. Ye Cheng wove between packed stalls, his keen eyes scanning each table piled high with crystal vials, talismanic scrolls, and ornamental jade trinkets. Every whispered rumor, every rare relic, could be the key to his next breakthrough in cultivation. With determinate, ion sharpening his gaze, he stepped deeper into the throng, ready to trade, to question, and to claim whatever advantage he could in this convergence of ambition and opportunity. Although they couldn't use the ancient teleportation array to visit other small worlds like the Outer World monks, they made up for it by delving deeper into the ruins and hidden sites within their own realms. Even if their current strength barred them from some chambers, they could still gather intelligence, retrieve a few scales or feathers, and piece together hints of long-forgotten treasures. As a result, many Outer World monks who arrived at the gathering point did more than just trade among themselves. They also scoured the native stalls for secrets, hoping to unearth rare relics or overlooked clues. Ye Cheng joined in without hesitation. He released his spiritual sense, not out of naivete or fear of missing something, but simply because he was on the lookout for anything extraordinary. His eyes swept over row after row of curiosities, paint-cracked pottery, jade fragments, fossilized talons, until something made him pause. A soft glimmer drew his gaze to the center of one aboriginal merchant's booth. Among the ordinary antiques lay several objects that shone with an uncanny brilliance. Ye Cheng's heart quickened as he leaned in for a closer look, his mind racing with possibilities of what these radiant treasures might be. Ye Cheng stood in the bustling market, where the burly vendors' prized harvests, gleaming relics of peak cultivation, were displayed on ornate stands, each tagged with an exorbitant price. A crowd of monks had gathered, drawn by the treasures and murmuring in admiration. Yet none of it held Ye Cheng's interest. His gaze was fixed on a jumbled heap of discarded odds and ends piled beside the strongman's booth. Tumbling out of the pile was an animal hide scroll, its surface crusted with dust and muted to a dull gray. To any casual observer, it was worthless, a meaningless scrap among refuse. But when Ye Cheng extended his divine sense, he immediately detected something special. Faint, intricate inscriptions traced across the hide, forming a Taoist diagram, clearly a map meant to guide its bearer to an ancient, sacred mansion. Could this truly be a map to a holy estate? His pulse quickened. Before he could reach for it, a nearby cultivator spoke up, eyeing the same heap of junk. "Boss, how much for this pile of stuff?" he asked. The vendor turned, squinting as he wiped a sweat-streaked hand across his brow. "This pile, huh? You looking for a bargain, young master?" He chuckled, already anticipating a haggle. Ye Cheng hid his excitement behind a neutral expression. If he could secure that scroll, its hidden path might change his destiny entirely. He drew a steady breath and prepared to bargain, every ounce of his focus on the dusty, unassuming roll that could lead him straight to the long-lost holy mansion. "I wouldn't get your hopes up," the stall owner warned with a knowing smirk, leaning back against his cart. Instead of rushing to close the deal, he shook his head and chuckled. "I've sifted through every scrap here, and trust me, there isn't a single treasure among them. You're absolutely sure you still want to buy?" Far from being deterred, the assembled monks, especially those who had come from distant temples, crowded in closer, their curiosity visibly piqued. The monk who had first asked the price blinked excitedly. A potential bargain was always worth a gamble. Standing quietly at the edge of the group, Ye Cheng watched the exchange with calm, focused eyes. Though his gaze flickered with interest, his expression betrayed no eagerness. Finally, the stall owner shrugged and held up 5 fingers. "Give me this many spirit crystals." 5,000 spirit crystals? It's a deal! The young monk practically beamed as he agreed. The owner burst into loud laughter. 5,000? You must be jesting. I said 50 million. A stunned silence fell over the crowd. 50 million spirit crystals, a sum so vast that it made everyone's head spin. Under ordinary circumstances, a primary sect's artifact worthy of the Xuan Emperor realm would indeed fetch this kind of price. But this heap of battered copper and rusted iron? 50 million spirit crystals? Even some of the aboriginal cultivators among the crowd bristled at the figure. "Manu tribe, are you trying to scam us?" one called out. 50 million for that junk? You've got to be kidding, another jeered. The Manu tribe's leader merely snorted, folding his arms as his horns pulsed with divine light. A look of contempt crossed his face. "You know nothing," he replied. "You see scrap metal, but do you know its origin? These pieces were unearthed in Liaoyuan Valley." At the mention of Liaoyuan Valley, murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Liaoyuan Valley? Those are ancient relics from there?" "Exactly, and that means these fragments could hold secrets connected to the legendary Liaoyuan Bell Realm." Liaoyuan Valley was one of the Fire World's most notorious forbidden zones. No one crossed it lightly. Now, it seemed, a rumor of its buried treasures was enough to make even hardened cultivators hold their tongues. They say Liaoyuan Valley was once the heart of a great Taoist sect, founded centuries ago by the legendary Lord of the Desolate Tower. Back then, his disciples of the alchemy lineage would retreat into these depths to refine pills and perfect their Tao. But the desolate tower has fallen silent for ages, and Liaoyuan Valley's glory has long since faded. Over time, the valley became a forbidden zone. Only its outer reaches are safe for passing cultivators. Anyone reckless enough to push deeper finds themselves consumed by divine flames that erupt from the earth. No mortal skill can quench them. Still, a persistent rumor whispers through the cultivation world that a hidden path exists within Liaoyuan Valley. If one could navigate its secret route, bypass the warding fires, and press into its innermost sanctum, they might claim the supreme alchemical legacy the Lord of the Desolate Tower left behind. Though the Lord never attained true immortality, his teachings and his furnace techniques rank among the greatest mortal legacies of the Tao. Just imagine the power contained in such an inheritance, enough to shake the foundations of the cultivation world itself. As soon as the tribal leader announced that these curious odds and ends had come from Liaoyuan Valley, the entire courtyard seemed to crackle with excitement. Ye Cheng felt his eyes narrow, but he kept his expression cool. Silently, he cast out his spiritual awareness, sweeping the crowd with a single thought. A faint, knowing smile curved his lips. "Very interesting," he murmured. He noticed at once several outsiders in the assembly, whose eyes brightened at the mention of Liaoyuan Valley. They stared hungrily at the scattered trinkets, especially the scrap of gray animal hide that, on closer inspection, concealed a map. Just then, Ye Cheng sensed the hulking enforcer from the bull tribe shifting his gaze. The giant had shot him a quick, unreadable look, then flicked his attention toward the other cultivators, those whose spiritual senses flashed like lightning. The exchange was subtle enough that the rest of the crowd remained oblivious, but to Ye Cheng's practiced awareness, it spoke volumes. All the onlookers were captivated by the tribal chief's announcement, everyone except Ye Cheng, who noticed a subtle shift in the air. A playful gleam lit his eyes as he turned back to the animal hide map before him. This time, he examined it with full attention, and before long, he uncovered its secret. Sure enough, the map was a counterfeit. Although it shimmered with spiritual energy and bore Taoist engravings, the lines were far too crisp, the work of no more than a century. A derisive smile curved Ye Cheng's lips as he prepared to step away. Then, unexpectedly, a faint pulse of spiritual power brushed against his spirit. He halted, his gaze sweeping over the treasures arrayed on the chieftain's stall. At the very center, displayed with obvious care, rested an ancient jade ring, its surface alive with subtle power. Intrigued, Ye Cheng approached and asked, "How many spirit crystals for that jade ring?" Chapter 360. Huh? Ye Cheng's words stopped the Bull Clan's native warrior cold. He'd been so confident in his scheme to dupe the Outlander cultivators, especially the bright-eyed youths like Ye Cheng. After all, he'd played this game countless times before. The immortal restrictions sealed within the desolate tower capped every aboriginal's cultivation at the venerable realm. No matter their talent, they couldn't break through that barrier. In exchange, their lifespans stretched far beyond those of outsiders, sometimes by centuries, and that longevity was a powerful bargaining chip. This Bull Clan warrior had learned long ago how to exploit such advantages. He knew exactly how foreign cultivators thought, how greed could blind even the most gifted prodigy. Every time the desolate tower reopened, it was a new opportunity to turn a profit, and this time his prey had been Ye Cheng and several other youths with exceptionally sharp divine senses. What he hadn't anticipated was Ye Cheng's acute perception. The moment the warrior mentioned the map, Ye Cheng had already sensed its existence, just as the native feared. Ye Cheng's hook barely hovered above the lake bed when the fish bolted in panic, shattering the water's calm. The burly Bull Clan warrior, momentarily taken aback, quickly composed himself. Though he didn't boast a grand cultivation rank, his years of experience and keen mind snapped him back to composure. He forced a confident smile as he faced Ye Cheng. "You have an uncanny eye, young friend," he said, producing a red jade pendant from within his robes. "This is quite literally the finest treasure I possess." He held the ornament aloft so everyone could see. "I risked life and limb to unearth it from the depths of Liaoyuan Valley. Just look at the Tao energy woven into its core, the subtle eddies of law that swirl around it. Even in its unfinished state, it qualifies as a Saint-tier weapon, perhaps a quasi-immortal artifact, a true Phaeacian-level relic. Cultivators gathered around, their eyes drawn to the pendant's striking design, a crimson jade serpent devouring its tail, coiled into an endless ring. A faint, mysterious Tau resonance pulsed from its surface. Any fire cultivator who wore it would find their path to enlightenment accelerated, and their fire-based spells surging with lethal potency. Ye Cheng lifted the ancient ring in his palm, studying its once impressive form. Unfortunately, the snake-head ornament had been sheared away long ago, and much of its Tao essence had leaked into the ether. Even so, the ring remained a treasure of considerable worth, only marginally inferior to a proper quasi-saint weapon. The bull tribe's strongman stood impassive, his broad features betraying nothing. "This ring has lain hidden for centuries," he rumbled. "Few dare even ask its value. I admire your boldness. Name your price." A ripple of astonishment ran through the onlookers. With a calm voice that echoed across the marketplace, the bull elder declared, 500 million spirit crystals. That is my offer." Murmurs of outrage swept the crowd. 500 million spirit crystals could purchase a brand-new, top-tier quasi-saint weapon. To pay that amount for a flawed relic, even one with lingering Tao essence, felt like bleeding one's wealth dry. Clearly, the bull tribe's negotiator aimed to take full advantage of the young cultivator. Yet Ye Cheng neither flinched nor fumed. He simply smiled, nodding in agreement. "So be it. 500 million spirit crystals." He reached into his storage pouch, withdrew a compact spatial device, and tossed it casually toward the bull tribe strongman. The clear, ringing promise of its contents left no room for debate. The hulking bull tribe strongman snatched up the box and immediately unleashed his divine sense. His eyes widened as he took in the contents. Exactly 500 million spirit crystals, stacked with surgical precision. He almost stopped breathing. He'd set the price sky high, fully expecting Ye Cheng to haggle. He never imagined Ye Cheng would hand over the full amount without a single counteroffer. Ye Cheng, however, remained perfectly composed. After all, these crystals weren't his to begin with. They belonged to the saint of the Red Mist sect. As for the broken ring he'd offered in exchange, the world saw nothing more than a defective quasi-saint artifact. But Ye Cheng's divine sense told a different story. The metal in this Ouroboros ring isn't some low-grade quasi-saint ore, he thought. It's genuine Saint King-grade Red Star iron. In fact, only a tiny scrap of Red Star iron was needed to elevate any fire element spiritual weapon from the quasi-saint rank to the full saint rank. Though the ring was incomplete, the Red Star iron it contained would be more than enough to upgrade the Red Sky Emperor sword in Ye Cheng's hand all the way to Saint King level. This much Red Star iron, no matter how you value it, even 500 million spirit crystals, much less 5 billion, couldn't buy a single ingot. "Still thinking I haven't done the math?" Ye Cheng's icy remarks snapped the Bull Clan strongman out of his blissful stupor. Flustered, the giant warrior hurriedly handed over the jade pendant. "I've counted it, believe me. Here, this ring is yours." As Ye Cheng took the ring, he felt a barely perceptible ripple of foreign spiritual energy wash over it. Without looking up, he probed the crowd with his spirit sense, and a knowing smile tugged at his lips. That surge had come from the very man who'd stirred everyone up earlier, convincing the Bull Clan boss that the pile of scrap metal belonged to one of Liaoyuan Valley's indigenous fighters. Of course, the so-called natives and the Bull Clan leader had been in cahoots all along. Ye Cheng simply tucked the ring away, already planning his next move. The moment Ye Cheng walked away clutching the jade pendant, the Bull Clan warrior and his cronies froze in their tracks, their avaricious eyes fixed on him like he was a fat sheep ready for shearing. But that was exactly the reaction Ye Cheng had counted on. He slipped out of Moshan City without a second's hesitation. Left behind in the bustling market, the Bull Clan members looked at one another in stunned silence. Their swagger evaporated. No one dared resume business as usual. After a tense pause, they exploded into a chorus of curses and charged through the stalls, determined to give chase. "Poor fellow," muttered a nearby cultivator, shaking his head as he watched the drama unfold. "That young man's too brash, too inexperienced. He doesn't understand the wisdom of keeping his wealth under wraps. This time, he's gone and painted a target on his back." In Moshan City, the Bull clan are infamous. Known as the local snakes of the underworld, they rank among the strongest fighters in the region. Even bound by the harsh immortal prohibition, their leader, a seasoned warrior nicknamed the Old Bull, fights on par with a late-stage Xuanzun. Over the years, he's amassed a small fortune and even smuggled forbidden weapons from those daring enough to explore the long-abandoned tower on the city's outskirts. To cross them so openly was to invite a reckoning, and everyone in the market knew it. When word of Ye Cheng's last stand spread, many villagers still couldn't believe what they'd witnessed. At a moment's notice, he deployed forbidden weapons and unleashed a burst of power rivaling a Tianzun. Yet to most onlookers, he'd seemed nothing more than an arrogant, overconfident youth, naive and reckless. How could someone so young hope to survive in the jaws of those bloodthirsty barbarians? The very next morning, Moshan City's market reopened, throngs of cultivators streaming in from every direction. Stalls rattled back to life under the clamor of haggling voices and the clink of spirit crystal coins. A handful of monks, who'd shared tea with Ye Cheng the day before, wove anxiously through the crowds, searching for the striking young guest who'd vanished so abruptly. When he didn't appear, their faces fell. He must have been cut down by the barbarian bulls, one monk whispered, sadness lacing his tone. Look at the rune on his hand, another replied. He came from the outer lands, surely the scion of a great sect, perhaps even of imperial blood, yet here he fell like any forsaken traveler. It's tragic, a third sighed. He never learned caution. He shone so brightly, only to vanish like a spark in the wind. Even among the aboriginal elders, weathered by age but still kind at heart, heads shook in sorrow. Though they spoke different tongues and led humbler lives, they too felt the sting of regret for the brave young man who'd given so much, only to disappear into the shadows of Moshan City. Just then, a monk's startled cry rang out, his voice trembling with disbelief. Wait, what's happening here? Huh, what's going on? Another monk echoed. Their exclamations drew every nearby brother's attention. As they turned, their faces went pale. At the far end of the barbarian bull's left stall stood a lone figure swathed in robes whiter than fresh-fallen snow. A slender spiritual sword hung at his hip, and his presence was so transcendent it seemed to momentarily still the bustling crowd. He was young, strikingly handsome, and utterly composed. Noticing the monk's shocked stares, he offered them a gentle, courteous nod and a warm smile. But instead of calming them, his serene friendliness only deepened their astonishment. My gods! He's not dead after all, and he's standing right there on the Maniou group's stall? One monk whispered in awe. Could he have forged an alliance with the Maniou group? Has he actually joined them? Another murmured, eyes wide with disbelief. But the barbarian bull gang only recruits natives. What's going on? A wave of shock rippled through the crowd. Sympathizers of Ye Cheng, bystanders with no stake in his affairs, even rival factions who'd eyed him jealously but never dared approach. None could string together more than a few incoherent words. Just then, a man came barreling through the market gates. Famous across Moshan City for his unrivaled martial skill and razor-sharp wit, he was usually the picture of calm. Now he panted like a beast, pure panic in his eyes. Casting aside all discretion, he bellowed over the stunned onlookers. Listen up! The barbarian bull gang has been wiped out. The killer's identity is still unknown, but it's almost certainly that reckless kid from yesterday. He fell silent at once, his gaze fixed on the solitary figure standing atop the wreckage of the old gang's stall. Who else could it be but the very reckless kid he just named?